Chapter 302. Su Yunxian followed his gaze and saw his car parked not far away. It was a Rolls-Royce. She lowered her eyes and smiled faintly. "All right then. Thank you for your trouble. This way, please." After they got into the car, the man handed her a business card. "My name is Paul. May I know your name?" "Shui Rian." Su Yunxian glanced at the business card. It was the CEO of UWI Construction Company. As far as she knew, UWI was one of the top construction companies in Italy. Her eyes flickered slightly. Paul said as he drove, "Miss Shui, where do you live?" "I'll get off at the square. Sorry to trouble you." More than half an hour later, the car stopped at the place Su Yunxian mentioned. Paul opened the door for her like a gentleman. "Miss Shui, it's nice to meet you. I hope we'll have a chance to meet again in the future." "Nice to meet you too, Mr. Paul." The two smiled and parted ways. The Rolls-Royce disappeared from her sight. Su Yunxian looked at the business card in her hand and smiled. She put the business card into her handbag. The square was not far from where she lived. She walked to the nearest supermarket and bought a large bag of vegetables, fruits, and supplements. In the afternoon, Su Yunxian was busy in the kitchen. She planned to make braised fish. She took the fish out of the fridge and opened the fresh-keeping bag. A strong fishy smell assailed her nose. Her stomach churned. She quickly covered her mouth and ran to the bathroom to vomit on the toilet. After vomiting, she had no energy left. Looking at herself in the mirror, Su Yunxian had a bad feeling. It seemed that she had not had her period for more than a month. Could she be pregnant? The more she thought about it, the more nervous she became. She immediately changed her clothes, took her wallet and went downstairs to the nearest supermarket to buy a pregnancy test. She held the pregnancy test and did not dare to test it for a long time. Suddenly she heard the sound of the door lock. Holly had returned. She did not expect that she would hesitate and struggle for more than an hour. Su Yunxian quickly stuffed the pregnancy test under the sofa cushion and walked into the kitchen. She covered her mouth and nose and continued to cook braised fish. "Baby, I'm back." Holly's tall figure appeared at the kitchen door. He had a bright smile on his face and a bottle of red wine in his hand. "We can spend a romantic night together." In fact, he had become a regular worker today and his salary had increased. He wanted to celebrate. Su Yunxian smiled and said, "Darling, you're back. The food will be ready soon. You can take a bath first." Holly leaned over and kissed her on the cheek and said, "Good." Su Yunxian placed the braised fish in front of him and sat opposite him, away from the fishy smell. During the meal, she did not touch the braised fish at all. Holly was a little surprised. "Baby, don't you like fish very much? Why aren't you eating today?" "My stomach is a little uncomfortable. The smell of fish makes me sick." Su Yunxian fanned her nose exaggeratedly. He put down his chopsticks. "Are you all right?" "It's okay. I've already gone to the hospital for a checkup. There's no problem. As long as you pay attention to your diet, you'll get better." "Why didn't you say so earlier? Don't drink the red wine anymore." He took away the wine glass in front of her. "You're not feeling well tonight. Rest early. I'll clean the kitchen." Su Yunxian smiled. "When did you learn how to do housework?" "Why didn't I know?" Holly walked to her side and hugged her. His voice was a little low. "If you can learn, I can too." She used to be with him and was used to living a good life. There were many servants to serve her. Even if she was in the mood to cook for him occasionally, she had never washed the dishes or mopped the floor. But now she was doing all these things very well. Every time Holly felt that the work was hard and difficult to persevere, he would think of the pain she had suffered and then have the motivation to persevere. He kissed her earlobe and said softly, "None of the friends who used to call me brothers helped me when I was in trouble. None of the women who used to say that they loved me were willing to have anything to do with me. Only you were willing to accompany me at this time. Sometimes I can't help but thank disaster. It made me realize what a great woman I have." Su Yunxian leaned into his arms, her eyes drooping slightly to hide the tears inside. "Baby, I swear that our bitter days are only temporary. I will think of a way to make a comeback." "I know, I believe you." Her voice was a little choked up. "All right, you're not feeling well. Go rest first." He rubbed her hair. Su Yunxian lay on the bed, listening to the crisp sound of cups and bowls colliding in the kitchen. She felt a little frustrated. She felt that the development of the situation was getting further and further away from the path she had expected. After thinking for a long time, she decided to find out if she was pregnant or not. After Holly went to work, she took a pregnancy test and found that she was really pregnant. At that moment she was about to break down. Ring, ring, ring. The landline in the living room rang. Su Yunxian took a deep breath. Hello, who is this? Hello, is this Miss Shui? I'm Paul. Do you remember me? A man's magnetic voice came from the phone. Su Yunqian said coldly, Mr. Paul, how do you know my phone number? Through the phone, Miss Shui, ever since we met yesterday I've been thinking about you. Do you have time? I'd like to treat you to a cup of coffee. Sorry, I'm busy. I don't have time. When do you have time? Su Yunqian frowned. Mr. Paul, I want to remind you that I already have a boyfriend. I know, and I also know that his name is Holly. He's been banned by the Dark Knight family. Paul's voice was ambiguous. There's no need for a beauty like you to continue living a hard life with him. If you change your mind, you can contact me at any time. After ending the call, Su Yunqian leaned against the sofa. She looked at the pregnancy test on the tea table and covered her face with her hands. Her thin shoulders trembled and tears slowly flowed down from between her fingers. At the construction site, a man in a hard hat and overalls was standing on a high steel frame. A safety rope was tied around his waist and he was working high up. Even though it was far away, Su Yunqian recognized that it was Holly. In the past few days, she had secretly come to the construction site to see him every day and learned about his work. In short, he did all the dirty and tiring work on the construction site, and sometimes he did some very dangerous work. In order not to be discovered by him, she wore big sunglasses, a t-shirt, torn jeans and a pair of sneakers. In short, even if he found her, he would never recognize her. Miss, it's very dangerous here. Please don't stay here. A security guard came over to remind Su Yunqian. Got it? I'll leave right away. Su Yunqian looked sideways at Holly, who was working high up in the air, and then turned to leave. Gradually, a decision came to her mind. Miss Shui, we meet again. A Rolls-Royce suddenly stopped beside Su Yunqian. The door opened and Paul's tall figure appeared in front of her. She nodded politely. Mr. Paul. Paul smiled. You're dressed very special today. If you hadn't taken off your glasses just now, I wouldn't have recognized you. Su Yunqian pursed her lips. You seem to be here all the time. Paul shrugged and laughed exaggeratedly. You don't think I'm following you, do you? In fact, I'm talking about a project with this construction company. He raised his chin at the construction site where Holly was. Do you, the CEO, need to talk about a project in person? Su Yunqian looked suspicious. Paul raised his eyebrows and spread his hands. It can't be helped. Although this construction company is small, the boss is very stubborn. We've been talking about the acquisition for nearly half a month, but we still haven't succeeded. Su Yunqian's eyes flickered. You're planning to acquire this company? Yes. If the acquisition is successful, we might have to fire some of the employees. Paul pointed out. Su Yunqian's fingernails dug into her palms. She had a faint smile on her face. Mr. Paul, if you have something to say, just say it. Paul smiled and said, Miss Shui is very smart. I don't think I need to make it too clear. Are you going home? Shall I give you a ride? Su Yunqian quietly looked into his deep eyes. It was a pair of shrewd and scheming eyes. She slowly curled her lips and chuckled. All right, thank you for your trouble. You're welcome. Please get in the car. Paul opened the car door and made an inviting gesture. After driving for half an hour, Su Yunqian realized that the route wasn't right. She turned around and asked Paul, This isn't my way home. Where are we going? I'll take you to a place. We can also have a cup of coffee on the way. Su Yunqian frowned. Mr. Paul, have you always been so assertive? No, I'm only like this for you. Paul looked at her seriously, his eyes flashing with passion. Rian, do you believe in love at first sight? An elegant and perfect woman like you definitely won't believe in such a vulgar plot. However, it did happen, so please listen carefully. I've never loved someone so deeply until I met you. Su Yunqian was slightly stunned and smiled. As you said, I don't believe in love at first sight. I'll make you believe it. Paul smiled confidently. They had arrived at their destination. Su Yunqian looked through the car window and saw a jewelry store opposite. She pursed her lips. Why did you bring me here? You'll know soon. Su Yunqian didn't know what Paul was up to. She followed him into the jewelry store. The store manager immediately greeted them. Mr. Paul, welcome, welcome. Looking at the situation, the two of them seemed to be very familiar with each other. Paul introduced, Rian, this is Charles. Charles, this is my friend Shui Rian. Hello, Miss Shui, I'm the store manager here. It's my honor to serve the two of you. Paul smiled. Charles, I'm here to pick up that thing. Okay, please follow me. Charles led them to the VIP room. A clerk served them coffee. Charles said, Please wait for a moment. I'll go get that thing now. Okay. Su Yunqian sat on the expensive leather sofa. Paul kept staring at her. That kind of gaze made her a little uneasy. She pretended to take a sip of the coffee. He suddenly said, "I've never seen a woman as confident as you. Even if you're wearing inappropriate clothes, you're still so calm and composed. You don't even have any sense of embarrassment. You even make the onlookers have the illusion that they're wearing the wrong clothes." Su Yunqian raised her eyebrows and faintly said, "Why do I feel that your words seem to be reminding me that my current attire is not suitable for this place?" Paul helplessly smiled. "It must be your misconception. I'm obviously praising you. Rian, if my previous words have offended you, I apologize to you. Please let down your guard against me, okay?" Su Yunqian put the coffee cup on the table and faintly smiled. "I'm sorry. After going through so many things, I've put thorns all over my body because I don't want to get hurt again." Paul stared into her eyes and said sincerely, "I've heard about the things between you and Holly. I can tell you frankly that I have nothing to do with the Dark Knight family, and I won't do anything for them. The only reason I approach you is because I love you." Su Yunqian quietly stared at him as if she was considering the truth of his words. After a long while, her lips curved into a smile. That kind of smile was different from a polite smile. It was a very sincere smile. "Thank you." Paul also smiled. When he was about to say something, the store manager, Charles, came in with a red velvet box in his hand. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Charles opened the box. A very beautiful emerald pearl necklace lay inside. Charles introduced, "Mr. Paul, this is the necklace you asked us to look for. It used to be Queen Mary's favorite." "Charles, thank you." Paul reached out and shook Charles's hand. "You're welcome." The two came out of the jewelry store. Paul drove to a high-end coffee shop. The two sat in the elegant coffee shop. Paul put the red velvet box in front of Su Yunqian. "Rian, when I first saw you, I felt that this necklace was very suitable for you." Su Yunqian used to be an antique appraiser. She was very clear about the value of this necklace. It was worth at least $3 million. Even for her who used to be rich, this was not a small amount. She calmly refused. "Mr. Paul, this gift is too expensive. I can't accept it." "Well, I'll keep it. I think one day you'll be willing to accept it." He was very confident. Su Yunqian smiled but did not say a word. The two talked happily. During the conversation, Su Yunqian moderately showed her knowledge and accomplishment. Paul's impression of her was getting better and better. Su Yunqian also saw his maturity, wisdom, and humor. She gradually let down her guard against him. When they parted, Paul hugged her like a friend. She didn't refuse. "Come and see." xianxia 866. Chapter 303. In the following week, Paul was like an old friend. He often called Su Yunqian and asked her out for coffee or dinner. She would occasionally accept his kind intentions. They had a lot in common and had a lot to talk about. He even revealed his personal feelings to her. He told her that he was married and had a son and a daughter with his ex-wife. He also said that he loved her and wanted to marry her. She just laughed it off and didn't seem to take it to heart. On the other hand, Su Yunqian was very hesitant. She didn't know if she should tell Holly about her pregnancy. She finally made up her mind, but when she really faced him, she asked, "Darling, do you like children?" Holly lazily laid on the sofa and pulled her into his embrace. "I don't really like it. Kids are noisy and annoying. But if it's an obedient and cute child like Xiaoguai, it's a different story." Su Yunqian's expression changed and her fingers suddenly grasped his arm. Holly said regretfully, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned them." Su Yunqian forced a smile. "It's okay." Actually, she wasn't upset because he mentioned Xiaoguai, but because he didn't seem to like children. Holly stroked her long hair and said gently, "Why are you suddenly asking me this question?" She smiled. "Darling, how about we have a child?" Holly's movements froze. His expression became uncomfortable, and his eyes were filled with struggle and hesitation. Su Yunqian waited for his answer and clenched her fingers nervously. His sexy lips pursed and he said slowly, "Baby, our current situation is a little bad. I think it's not suitable to raise a child for the time being." Su Yunqian was stunned. She forced a smile and hid the pain in her eyes. "Yes, you're right. It's not suitable to have a child now." He hugged her tightly and kissed her hair. "Baby, give me 2 years. I'll let us live a prosperous life again. When that time comes, we'll have a child, okay?" This was probably the first time he had asked her for her opinion, but she wasn't happy at all. She loved the child in her belly and wanted to give birth to a child, but she had to admit that Holly was right. They weren't in the condition to raise a child now. They didn't even have the right to be parents. Su Yunxian held back the tears in her eyes and nodded. Okay, we'll have a child in the future. He stroked her back and nibbled her earlobe. It's time to rest. I'll carry you back to the room. How could Su Yunxian not understand the meaning of his words? She quickly sat up in his arms. Darling, I'm on my period today. It's not convenient. Okay, we haven't had sex in a long time. He looked a little annoyed and carried her. Looks like I'll have to endure for a few more days. Ever since Su Yunxian found out that she was pregnant, she had been using all kinds of excuses to reject his advances. Fortunately, he worked hard and his needs weren't as strong as before. The number of times she rejected him wasn't that many, so it didn't arouse his suspicions. Su Yunxian went to the hospital alone and sat in the corridor of the obstetrics and gynecology department. She saw many pregnant women doing prenatal checkups with their husbands and suddenly felt envious. She used to think that women who sacrificed everything for their families were ridiculous, but now that she was pregnant, she had the idea of being a good wife and mother. Miss Shui, it's your turn. Please come with me. The nurse interrupted Su Yunxian's thoughts and led her into the operating room. Miss Shui, I've looked at the checklist. The child is developing very well. Are you sure you want to abort the child? The doctor confirmed again before she lay on the operating bed. Su Yunxian clenched her fists and took a deep breath. Then she slowly exhaled. Yes. Please lie on the operating bed. The doctor was ready. He held the anesthetic in his hand. Relax. I'm going to inject you with the anesthetic. The cold liquid was injected into her body. She felt herself stiffen and couldn't move her fingers. However, her eyes were still open and she tried hard to look at the figure in front of her. Someone separated her legs, and an ice-cold instrument reached into her lower body. A huge sense of fear surged like a tide. She tried hard to open her mouth and shouted with the last of her strength, "Stop!" 10 minutes later, Su Yunxian sat on the sofa in the corridor with a pale face. The anesthetic had worn off, but she still felt that her feet couldn't move. She took out her phone and dialed a number. It's me. Do you have time now? Half an hour later, Paul's tall figure appeared at the end of the corridor. He walked quickly to her side with an anxious look on his face. What's the matter? Are you sick? Su Yunxian looked at him in a daze. Her face was pale and she looked terrible. What's the matter? Paul grabbed her shoulders nervously. Rian, tell me. Her eyelashes fluttered and a tear rolled down. She asked in a trembling voice, Paul, do you still mean what you said? Yes, it all counts. Paul held her shoulders tightly and looked very determined. If you want to get married, we can register tomorrow. Su Yunxian's vision was blurred by tears. But, I'm pregnant? Paul froze and there was a look of disbelief on his face. She smiled bitterly. I don't want to give up the child. Paul's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He pursed his lips and didn't say a word. Forget it. Just take it that I didn't ask anything. She pushed his hand away slowly and said softly, Send me back. She stood up and walked forward slowly. Her back view looked so weak and helpless. Paul suddenly said loudly, It's okay. Su Yunxian turned around stiffly. He had already run to her and hugged her tightly in his arms. His voice was urgent. It's okay. I don't mind. When the child is born, I'll treat him as my own. I'll love him and dote on him. You know that I have 2 children with my ex-wife. Don't mind, okay? She stood there stiffly for a long time before she finally reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist. Okay, she said softly. He held her face and moved closer to her. She didn't push him away like before but closed her eyes. He kissed the corner of her lips and said softly, When will you move to my place? Let me take care of you. She looked down and said softly, Give me a few days. Okay, I'll wait for you. That night Holly returned home very late. He had drunk and reeked of alcohol. He leaned against the door and knocked hard, saying, Baby, I'm back. Su Yunxian had been sitting on the sofa waiting for him. When she heard the noise, she immediately ran over and opened the door for him. She couldn't help but frown when she saw how drunk he was. Holly giggled. Baby, I'm back. She was helpless and reached out to help him. I know. Come in quickly. Why did you drink so much? Party? He mumbled a few words. She didn't hear him clearly and didn't ask further. She helped him into the house and placed him on the sofa. Although it wasn't a long distance, he was very heavy. After carrying him for a while, Su Yunxian was already panting. I'll prepare the bath water for you. Take a rest first. He mumbled a few words and then lay down on the sofa. When Su Yunxian came out of the bathroom, he had already fallen asleep. She sighed and got a basin of hot water. She took a towel over and wiped his face and chest. Then she took off his shoes and covered him with a blanket. Her slender and fair fingers caressed his face. His handsome eyebrows, his straight nose, his thin lips, and his sharp chin made her chuckle. Since when did she start to miss this man? She squatted in front of him and leaned her head on his chest. She said softly, "Holly, if it weren't for me, would your life be different?" It was as if he could feel her sadness. He suddenly raised his hand and hugged her shoulder. She was shocked. Thinking that he had woken up, she looked up at him but saw that his eyes were closed. Just like that, she was held in his arms and maintained this position for the entire night. When she woke up, her arms, neck, and body hurt. She tried to move her stiff neck and found that he was still asleep, but his arm was still on her shoulders. She carefully moved his arm away and got up from the ground. Su Yunxian made the last breakfast and brought it to the dining table. Then she took out the small suitcase that she had already packed from the wardrobe. She kissed his forehead and quietly walked out of the room. The moment she locked the door, she looked back at Holly, who was still sleeping soundly. Her eyes glistened with tears. Paul was waiting at the intersection in the car. When he saw her coming, he took a few steps forward, took the suitcase from her hand and kissed her cheek. "Good morning." She looked back in the direction of home and said, "Let's go." Not long after their car drove away, Holly woke up. He sat up from the sofa and rubbed his hangover head. He frowned and called out, "Baby," he called out a few times but no one responded. He smelled the fragrance of milk and fried eggs. He stood up and walked into the bedroom. No one was there. He opened the bathroom door but there was still no one there. He suddenly sobered up. He hurried back to the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. There were only his clothes left. Her clothes were all gone. Her pink Louis Vuitton suitcase was also gone. Holly was stunned. All the blood in his body rushed to his brain. His hands and feet were cold. No, it was impossible. She said that she would not leave him. He ran downstairs and shouted, "Baby Yunxian, where are you?" He had completely lost his mind. He wandered around the neighborhood aimlessly and called her name crazily. Other than the office workers who occasionally glanced at him curiously, no one responded to him. Awesome novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 304. Holly frantically searched for Su Yunxian. If the supervisor hadn't called him and asked him why he was absent from work, he would have forgotten about going to work. He replied that he was sick and had taken a day off. After that, he desperately tried to call Su Yunxian's cell phone, but it was turned off and there was no way to contact her. After a series of emotional changes from shock, pain, and exposure, he finally calmed down and ran to the property management office to pull up the surveillance video below the building. He saw Su Yunxian dragging her suitcase out of the building. He saw a handsome middle-aged man walk up to her, take the suitcase from her hand and kiss her cheek. The anger in his heart immediately rose like a volcano erupting. Blazing magma spread from the bottom of his heart, almost burning him to ashes. "Damn it, if I find your whereabouts, you're dead meat." At this moment, Holly had become the cold and ruthless young master of the mafia family. His eyes were filled with bloodthirsty murderous intent. However, he had nothing now. It would be difficult to find him with just a man's face. After thinking for a long time, he decided to give up his dignity and ask that person for help. Mika Kito was playing with Xiao Guai in the hospital when his cell phone suddenly rang. When he saw the caller ID, he didn't answer immediately. Xiao Guai, who was in his arms, stretched her neck to take a look and cried out in surprise, "It's Uncle Holly. Uncle Shin, I want to talk to Uncle Holly." The adults kept what happened at Hai's full moon party from the children, so Xiao Guai didn't know that the Uncle Holly she was talking about was actually a bad guy. "Okay." Mika Kito helplessly stroked Xiao Guai's little head, which had started to grow hair. After Mika Kito picked up the call, he didn't wait for the other party to speak and said in a deep voice, "Holly, I'm at the hospital now. Xiao Guai wants to talk to you." Holly had already prepared a lot of things to say, but he was at a loss for what to do when Zhang Zian beat him to it. He mumbled, "Okay. Naughty girl, here you go." Mika Kito handed the phone to Xiao Guai. Xiao Guai called out sweetly, "Uncle Holly, are you okay?" Holly's fingers suddenly tightened around the phone. He cleared his throat and said, "I'm fine, Xiao Guai. How are you?" "I'm fine too," Xiao Guai said softly. "Uncle Holly, let me tell you a piece of good news. I've started to grow my hair. Mommy said that in 2 months, my hair will be tied up and I'll be as beautiful as before." "That's great. Eat more vegetables and your hair will grow faster. Giga, you have to listen to the doctor. Don't be afraid to take medicine, okay?" Okay. "Uncle Holly, when are you coming to see me?" "In a few days. I'm very busy during this period of time." Xiao Guai frowned and quickly smiled. Oh, I see. Then you go ahead. When you're not busy, remember to come and see me. Okay, I'll definitely come and see you. Uncle Holly, do you have something to say to Uncle Shin? I'll return the phone to him. Holly said, okay. After a short silence, Holly heard Mika Kito's deep voice. Why are you looking for me? This was the first time Holly had contacted them since he was kicked out of the castle. Holly paused and said in a deep voice, Mika Kito, I admit that I've done a lot of things to let you down. I apologize. Mika Kito picked up Xiao Guai and put her aside. He patted her head and walked to the corridor before he replied, even if you apologize, I won't forgive you. How could you help Su Yunshin hurt xiaxia? Holly was silent for a moment. I've done everything for the sake of power. It was a short sentence, but it explained all the evil reasons. Beitang Shin paused for a moment, then said, if there's anything you need my help with, just say it. He understood Holly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had encountered some difficulties, he wouldn't have lowered his head to him at this time. I want you to help me investigate a person's background and find out his whereabouts. Send me the photo. Holly took a screenshot of Paul's photo from the surveillance video and sent it to Mika Kito. Mika Kito forwarded it to the Dark Knight family. In less than an hour, he received a response and sent the information to Holly. Holly said, thank you. Mika Kito said calmly, Holly, I hope you know what you're doing. Holly flipped through the information sent to him by Mika Kito. The man's name was Paul and he was the president of UWI Construction Company. The information gave him his phone number, company address and home address. Holly could find Paul through these things. Holly dialed Paul's private number. After 2 rings, a deep voice came from the other end of the line. Hello, this is Paul. Who is this? Holly said coldly, I want to talk to Shui Rian. Pass the phone to her. Paul paused and said, she's not here. If you want to talk to her, you can call her on her cell phone. I know she's right beside you. Pass the phone to her. He only suspected that they were together, but he didn't have any evidence. But he didn't expect a familiar voice to come from the other end of the line. It's okay. Let me talk to him. After that, the phone was handed over to Su Yunshin, and Paul considerately left. Su Yunshin called his name in a low voice. Holly. Holly clenched his fists tightly. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a few words. What? At this moment, Su Yunshin was standing on the balcony of a luxurious villa. She looked at the sparkling swimming pool not far away and said calmly, because I don't want to suffer anymore. Holly, let's break up. Holly said angrily, no, I don't believe you. We were fine 2 days ago. Tell me why. What I said before was a lie. Holly, I've been using you all this time. Go back and beg your uncle. Maybe he can let you return to the family. Shut up. It's not like that. Did my uncle say something to force you to leave me? No, I left you because I don't want to suffer with you. Holly, let me go. No, you're mine. Come back immediately. I'll forgive you and continue to be like before. You know that's impossible. Su Yunshin's eyes were filled with pain. She said word by word, I've fallen in love with Paul. Holly roared in anger. Su Yunshin, you hateful woman. Do you have a heart? I'm sorry. I don't have a heart. I'm very selfish. You should have known that, right? Holly, don't look for me in the future. I won't follow a loser. After Su Yunshin said this, she hung up and turned off the phone without waiting for his reply. Holly was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He threw the phone against the wall. This was the first time he had fallen in love with a woman, but he had been miserably deceived by this woman. He angrily smashed all the things in the room. It was a mess. After the silence, the room was as messy as he was. The air was filled with despair and anger. Holly was a very proud person. He didn't allow any betrayal. When he was still the young master of the Dark Knight family, all the people who betrayed him had gone to hell. This time was no exception. He had already prepared for the worst. He quit his job and went to the black market to buy a pistol. He drove the car to Paul's villa and waited for a few hours until Paul and Su Yunshin got in the car and came out of the villa. Holly was very good at following others. He followed the Rolls-Royce all the way to the airport. He saw Paul and Su Yunshin get out of the car hand in hand. The driver took a red suitcase out of the trunk. He knew that suitcase. It was Su Yunshin's. In the airport hall, Paul hugged Su Yunshin and said softly, "You really don't want me to accompany you?" Su Yunshin smiled. "Well, I know you're busy with work. I'm only going back to China to visit my family. I'll be back soon." Paul smiled. "When are you going to introduce me to your family?" "Next time." Su Yunshin was suddenly enlightened. She, who had been dead, suddenly stood in front of her family with a new face. Would they be willing to forgive her and accept her? Well, there's an old saying in China. An ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law. I, the ugly son-in-law, also have to meet my mother-in-law. He laughed and joked. Su Yunxian smiled and hugged him. It's almost time. I'm leaving. Well, have a safe trip. I'll miss you. Paul lowered his head and kissed her lips. Why are you leaving me? Do you really fall in love with this man? Holly's cold voice came. Su Yunxian quickly pushed Paul away. She looked up in a panic and saw Holly standing 10 meters away. He looked a lot worse, with stubble on his chin, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes bloodshot. She couldn't help but clench her fists when she thought that someone who cared about his appearance to the point of being harsh would look like this. Let me ask you, do you really fall in love with him? Although he looked unkempt, the domineering and ruthless aura he exuded did not change. He approached her step by step, his eyes like a sharp blade cutting into her. Her legs were trembling, but she didn't retreat. She met his cold gaze and gritted her teeth. Yes, I love him. Holly's eyes suddenly shot out a murderous look. He said sternly, I'll give you one more chance. Come back to me. Su Yunxian dug her nails into her palm and said indifferently, Impossible. Good, very good. Holly suddenly pulled out a pistol from his waist and pointed it at Su Yunxian. Su Yunxian didn't seem surprised at all. She slowly closed her eyes. Even if you kill me, I won't go back with you. Paul was stunned. He shouted, No, don't shoot. A pistol. Someone screamed. The surrounding people retreated. In an instant, only the three of them were left in the huge hall. The airport was in chaos. Someone had already called the police. Come and see. Xianxia 799. Chapter 305. Holly turned a blind eye to everything around him. He aimed the gun at Su Yunxian, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. In the end, he suddenly turned the gun and pointed it at Paul. He said coldly, If you don't want to go back with me, I'll kill him and tie you up. No, don't kill me. Miss Shui, please go back with him. Paul immediately turned into a different person and raised his hands. Su Yunxian was extremely disappointed. She didn't expect Paul to be such a man. If it was Holly, he definitely wouldn't be so irresponsible. She only remembered his good points now. She said indifferently, Don't kill him. Holly reached out a hand and stared at her with his deep eyes. Come to my side. Su Yunxian shook her head slowly. I won't go over, Holly. Actually, I've never loved you. I've always been using you. I wanted to use your power to snatch Bailey Han. Until now, my heart still only has Bailey Han. No, shut up. Holly was already burning with anger. Her words were like adding fuel to the fire. The name Bailey Han was like a curse that broke the last bit of rationality in his mind. He angrily pulled the trigger. Bang! The bullet flew towards Paul's chest. Su Yunxian suddenly flew in front of Paul. The bullet shot into her chest at an extremely fast speed. A hole was opened in her chest and blood flowed out of it. Holly was stunned as if he was struck by lightning. Her body slowly slid down. Rian, Paul growled and hugged her. He was terrified. Rian, why did you do this? She didn't know why either. Perhaps she just suddenly wanted to be a good person. Yunxian. Holly rushed forward and snatched her from Paul's arms. He carried her and ran out of the airport in panic. He kept saying, Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. You'll be fine. Baby, you'll be fine. Su Yunxian looked up at his anxious face. Her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She grabbed his arm and said very softly, Holly, there's no need. It's too late. No, you'll be fine. Tears welled up in Holly's eyes. He hugged her and covered her bleeding chest with one hand. He begged, Yunxian, please don't get hurt. I promise. Even if you want to leave me, I'll agree. Don't get hurt, don't get hurt. I won't leave. I won't leave anymore. Su Yunxian looked at his tear-streaked face in confusion. She said intermittently, Actually, I lied to you. I don't love Bailey Han anymore. I love you. I love you so much, so much. Don't say any more. Please don't say any more. Taxi. Holly stood at the intersection with her, who was covered in blood. He waved his hand wildly in the wind. Finally, a taxi stopped in front of him. He carried her into the car and said, Hospital. The driver was frightened by the blood on their bodies and immediately drove to the nearest hospital at the speed of an airplane. Baby, it'll be fine. Hang in there. We'll get to the hospital soon. Holly covered her wound tightly. Tears rolled down her face. She smiled absent-mindedly and said intermittently, Holly, I'm so lucky to have met you. In this life, you spoil me. In the next life, I'll love you, No, I don't want the next life. I want this life. Su Yunxian, I order you. Don't let anything happen to you. Don't give up. We still have children. I haven't proposed to you. How can you abandon me? Holly held her hand tightly. His tone was fierce, but he couldn't stop the tears in his eyes. She twitched violently and coughed. Bright red blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Holly, no matter what happens, you have to live well. Together with my share, together. No, I want you to live with me. Please hang in there. Holly held her hand tightly. With deep panic in his eyes, he shouted at the driver, faster, faster. Su Yunxian's eyes were flowing with tears. Her eyes were gradually losing focus. Holly, when I die, send me back to China and apologize to my family for me. Her body gradually turned cold. Her fingers in his hand became stiff. Her eyes were also losing focus. She stopped breathing amidst his mournful cries. Holly hugged her and cried in grief. Yunxian, how can you abandon me? You said that you would stay with me. You lying woman. Do you know that I love you? I love you so much. Unfortunately, she couldn't hear his call anymore. His tragic cries echoed in the narrow car. Even the driver in the front seat couldn't help but cry. The news of Su Yunxian's death finally reached the ears of Xia Dong and the others. Once a person was dead, all the past events should be put aside. After some discussion, Xia Dong, Bai Han, and Bai Tangshan finally decided to attend her funeral. The funeral parlor was very quiet. There were only a few people in it. Su Yunxian was wearing a beautiful wedding dress and lying in the coffin. She looked serene as if she was just sleeping. Holly was wearing a black suit. He knelt in front of the coffin. He held her hand with a diamond ring in his hand and said in a solemn and low voice, Yunxian, whether you like it or not, from today onwards you are my wife. No matter if it's a blessing or a curse, illness or health, I will love and cherish you. Even death can't separate us. Watching him put the ring on Su Yunxian's finger, Xia Dong couldn't help but cry. She turned her head and couldn't bear to look. Bai Han put his arm around her shoulder. After Holly put the ring on Su Yunxian's finger, he leaned over and kissed her lips gently. He murmured, Yunxian, I love you. Heavy footsteps sounded. Paul's tall figure appeared at the door. He was wearing a black suit with a white chrysanthemum in his pocket. He looked very sad. He walked to Su Yunxian's coffin and slowly bowed. Holly suddenly jumped up and punched Paul's cheek. He roared, Bastard, it's all your fault. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't have died. Paul was caught off guard and was knocked to the ground by Holly's punch. He covered his cheek in embarrassment. Holly didn't stop and rushed up again. Bai Han and Mika Kito looked on coldly and didn't intend to stop him. Paul didn't have time to get up and was kicked hard again. Holly vented all his anger on Paul. He grabbed his collar with one hand and kicked him up from the ground. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched him hard on the head. No, stop. Paul hurriedly grabbed his wrist. You're the one who killed Rian. Do you know that she came to me because she was pregnant? Holly suddenly stopped. After a while, he grabbed his collar tightly with both hands and said fiercely, What did you say? Say it again. I said, because she was pregnant and you didn't want the child, she came to me because she wanted to give the child a happy family. Paul was anxious and scared. He blurted out everything. I don't believe you. You must be lying. Holly punched him hard on the nose. Paul's nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He was bleeding profusely. Whether I'm lying or not, you can go to the hospital and ask the doctor. Holly, knowing that you killed your wife and child doesn't feel good, does it? Paul grimaced in pain. He couldn't beat Holly in physical strength, so he used words to hurt him. Shut up. I'm going to kill you. Holly kicked Paul to the ground and punched and kicked him. Bai Tangshan had seen enough. He reckoned that if they were to continue fighting, Paul would become a cripple. He waved his hand and Vermilion Bird strode to Holly's back. Taking advantage of Holly not paying attention, Vermilion Bird struck the back of Holly's head. Holly, who had already lost his reason due to anger, fainted on the ground. Mika Kito said calmly, Take him back. Yes. Suzaka lifted Holly with one hand and carried him to the parking lot of the funeral parlor. She stuffed him into the car. Xia Dong watched as Suzaku's figure disappeared into the distance. She then glanced at Paul, who was lying on the ground covered in blood. She sighed. Brother Shin, let's send him to the hospital. Someone will take care of him later. He won't die. Don't worry. Bai Tangshan walked to the front of Su Yunxian's coffin and slowly bowed. He faintly said, Next time learn what to do and what not to do. After he returned, Xia Dong and Bai Han walked to the coffin and bowed. Bai Han remained silent. Xia Dong pursed her lips and said, Have a safe journey. Holly was dispirited. He had gone to the hospital where Su Yunxian had gone for a checkup. The doctor had said that she was indeed pregnant. During the operation she had changed her mind at the last minute. He remembered that she had once asked him, "Do you like children?" She had even said, "How about we have a child?" How had he answered her? He had said that he didn't really like children. He had said that their current situation was not good and that it was not suitable for them to have children. B*****. He was really a B*****. He had not suspected why she had suddenly mentioned children. Because of his answer, she must have mistakenly thought that he did not want to keep the child and wanted to create a good environment for the child. That was why she had abandoned him and followed Paul. He had actually killed the woman he loved the most and their child with his own hands. Holly screamed in the empty room. He punched the wall viciously with his fists. His hands were bleeding but he refused to stop. Every day he held Su Yunxian's urn in his arms and refused to let go. In just 3 days he had become like a homeless man. He muttered, "Baby, you said that if you wanted to go home I would send you home." Holly sold all his assets, bought a plane ticket and flew to China. Come and see. Xianxia 799. Chapter 306. City of the Su family. The Su family welcomed a special guest. He was a foreigner wearing a black suit. His hair and beard had not been trimmed for a long time. He looked a little down and out. His eyes were empty and his face was expressionless. He looked like a puppet. He was Holly. Su Bolin looked at Holly who was sitting on the sofa opposite him. He was holding a black box in his arms like it was a treasure. He was holding it tightly and it looked very strange. Su Bolin looked at him inquisitively and said in English, "Sir, you said you are my daughter's husband but my daughter has passed away." Holly acted as if he did not hear him. His eyes were blank as if he was lost in his memories. He said slowly, "Yunxian and I met in England. I helped her do a lot of wrong things. After her reputation in City A was ruined, she could not continue living here, so she asked me to help her. We faked her death and she jumped into the sea to fake her death. I helped her create a fake identity and sent her to Korea for plastic surgery." When Su Bolin heard this he shouted excitedly, "Wait, you said my daughter is not dead. Tell me, where is she now?" Holly did not answer him. Like a robot he said mechanically, "We did a lot of wrong things again. Later the matter was exposed. I was disinherited by my uncle and was chased out of the house. My financial situation was very poor. She never complained and always accompanied me. She was pregnant. She thought I did not want this child, so in order to protect the child and to create a good environment for the child, she planned to break up with me and be with another man." His hollow eyes gradually filled with sorrow, and his tone was also filled with sorrow. "I thought she had betrayed me. I held a gun and wanted to threaten her to return to my side. I shot at that man and she stood in front of him. It was me. I killed my wife and child." Su Bolin finally calmed down from the pain of losing his daughter. Who knew that a strange man would come to his door and tell him that his daughter was not dead? His heart was lit with hope, thinking that he could see his daughter again. However, that man quickly shattered his hope. Su Bolin was angry and sad. His finger trembled as he pointed at Holly's nose. His lips trembled, but he did not say a word for a long time. Holly expressionlessly placed the black box on the table. He slowly leaned forward and knelt in front of Su Bolin with his arms on the ground and his head on the floor. "Father-in-law, I'm here today to apologize to you. The first thing I'm sorry about is me. I'm sorry. I killed your daughter and grandson." His forehead hit the floor heavily, and it was already red and swollen. "Yunxian asked me to apologize to you. I'm sorry that I lied to you and mother and hurt your feelings." He knocked his forehead heavily on the ground again, and the floor was already stained with blood. "The third apology is from Yunxian and me. We're sorry that we let you and mother-in-law down." His forehead finally hit the floor and he stayed there for a long time, unwilling to get up. Tears streamed down Su Bolin's face. He held his chest with one hand and covered his eyes with the other. Tears slid down his face and rolled onto his clothes. "Honey, what's going on? Are you okay?" Mrs. Su came back from outside and saw the unusual scene in the living room. Holly did not look up. He was still kneeling on the ground like a statue. Su Bolin's shoulders trembled, and his right hand was still covering his eyes. No one answered Mrs. Su's question. She was a bit uneasy. She walked up to Su Bolin and pushed his shoulder. "Honey, what's wrong?" Su Bolin could no longer control himself and finally burst into tears. Mrs. Su had never seen her husband lose his composure like this. She quickly pulled out a tissue and wiped his tears. She panicked and said, "Honey, what's going on? Say something. Do you want me to die from anxiety?" Su Bolin shook his head. He was so emotional that he could not say a complete sentence. Mrs. Su was anxious and worried. She was not in the mood to ask why a foreign man was kneeling in front of her husband, patting his back and comforting him softly. After a long time he finally calmed down. Su Bolin looked at Holly, who was still kneeling in front of him, and waved his hand sadly. You can go. I don't want to see you for the time being. Holly quietly turned to face Mrs. Su and kowtowed. Mrs. Su was shocked. She quickly went forward to help him up. What are you doing? Get up. Su Bolin suddenly shouted, Don't worry about him. Let him kowtow. Mrs. Su was so scared that she retracted her hand. She stood there not knowing what to do. Holly kowtowed 2 more times. When he stood up, his forehead was covered in blood. He looked at the small black box on the table, turned around and walked to the door. Mrs. Su called out to his back, Sir, is the wound on your head okay? Holly did not stop. As if he did not hear her question, he walked out of their sight step by step. Honey, what's going on? Mrs. Su was confused. Su Bolin shook his head. His voice was hoarse. It's nothing. You can go upstairs first. I want to be alone. He slowly closed his eyes. He did not want to say anything more. Mrs. Su hesitated for a moment. Seeing that her husband seemed tired, she did not ask any more questions. She looked at him worriedly and walked upstairs. After hearing the footsteps disappear, Su Bolin slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was locked on the black box that Holly brought. He had already guessed what was inside. He reached out his trembling hand and took Su Yunxian's urn. He held it tightly in his arms. Murky tears poured out again. He stroked the urn with one hand as if he was stroking his daughter's hair. He choked with sobs. Yunxian, my silly daughter. Why did you choose such a path? Su Bolin could not control his emotions. He punched the back of the chair with his fist. Mrs. Su did not go far. She was eavesdropping at the corner of the stairs. She heard her husband's suppressed sobs. She quietly poked her head out and saw him holding the black box with tears streaming down his face. She did not understand what was going on. Why was her husband holding the box and calling her daughter's name? Yunxian, how could you bear to let a white-haired person die before a black-haired person? Su Bolin covered his face with one hand and held the urn tightly with the other. The confusion in Mrs. Su's heart was like a snowball, rolling bigger and bigger. Moreover, her husband's sadness infected her, and she couldn't help but tear up. She quietly went downstairs, walked behind him and called out, Hubby! Su Bolin trembled. His hands trembled and the urn almost fell. He hurriedly held it with both hands and raised his teary face to look at his wife. Honey, what's inside? Mrs. Su was confused when she saw her husband so worried about the black box. Su Bolin wiped the tears from his face and said in a displeased tone, Nothing. Didn't I tell you to go upstairs? Why did you come down again? Honey, are you hiding something from me? Mrs. Su walked in front of him. Let me see what's inside. Huilan, what's wrong with you today? Hurry up and go upstairs. The more Su Bolin tried to hide it, the more flustered he became. He held the urn even tighter. You're acting strange today too. I'm your wife. What can't you tell me? Mrs. Su stubbornly held the urn tightly with both hands. As the two argued, the urn fell to the ground with a bang, and the ashes inside spilled all over the floor. Mrs. Su was stunned. The ashes on the floor looked like... Just as a thought popped up in her mind before she could confirm it, the furious Su Bolin almost subconsciously raised his hand and slapped her across the face. This slap shocked both of them. You hit me? Mrs. Su covered her face and cried. Su Bolin loved his wife very much and had never hit her before. He panicked and wanted to go forward to check on her injuries, but she pushed him away. She angrily pointed at the floor and roared, Su Bolin, you have to tell me what happened. Otherwise I'll divorce you. Su Bolin originally wanted to hide it from his wife and son so that they wouldn't be tortured again. However, his wife insisted on getting to the bottom of it. Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, he had to tell them the truth. Mrs. Su couldn't take the blow and fainted on the spot. Su Bolin hurriedly called the servants and rushed her to the hospital. Su Jin heard the news and rushed over from the company. He anxiously asked, Dad, what happened? Why did Mom have a high blood pressure attack? Su Bolin was already exhausted, so he spilled the beans. Su Jin staggered a few steps and sat down on the bench in the hospital corridor. His mind was in a mess and was about to explode. The father and son were silent for a long time. More than an hour later, Mrs. Su woke up. The first thing she wanted was to see her daughter's ashes. Su Bolin had already ordered the servants to clean up all the ashes in the living room into the urn. At this time he also asked the servants to send the urn to the hospital. Mrs. Su hugged the urn and cried bitterly. She almost fainted several times. In the end, Su Jin and couldn't stand it and asked the doctor to inject her with a tranquilizer. "Dad, how can I find that man?" Su Jinan's face was livid. His eyes were full of hatred and his fists were clenched. He couldn't wait to find Holly and tear him apart. "I don't know." When Holly left, Su Bolin was still sad and didn't have time to ask him. The Su family thought that they would never see Holly again. Unexpectedly, the next morning as soon as they opened the door, they saw a blond man kneeling at the door. His head was buried deep and his movements were as humble as the mud. Su Jin and didn't need to ask to guess who he was. He rushed in front of him and grabbed him by the collar. He dragged him up from the ground and punched him in the face. "You bastard, how dare you show up again? I'm going to kill you." Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 307. Su Jinan punched and kicked Holly. Holly didn't fight back at all. Like a puppet he let Su Jinan drag him up, beat him up and kick him out. His hair was messy, his face was covered in blood and his clothes were torn. Enough. Su Bolin finally couldn't stand it anymore and grabbed the furious Su Jinan. "Dad, don't hold me back. Let me kill him." Su Jinan was like an angry lion, struggling with all his might. "What can you do if you kill him? Can you save Yunqian's life? If you kill him you'll have to go to jail." Su Bolin was not as strong as Su Jinan. Sweat came out of his forehead as he roared with all his might. "I want him to pay for Yunqian's life." Su Jinan had lost his mind. He broke free from his father's hand and was about to go forward again. Mrs. Su rushed over and hugged Su Jinan from behind. She cried and said, "Jinan, your father is right. We've already lost Yunqian. We can't lose you too. Don't hit him. Mom begs you." Su Jinan's body shook and his movements gradually stopped. Su Bolin glanced at Holly who was lying on the ground motionless. He called a servant and sent him to the hospital. Holly's appearance was like a bomb that blew up the pain hidden deep in the Su family's heart. It took a long time for them to calm down. 2 days later, Holly's injuries were almost healed. He left the hospital without leaving a word. He returned to Rome. He didn't contact anyone. Holly went to the police station and admitted that he killed his wife. Since Su Yunqian's body had been cremated, there was no way to collect evidence. Holly didn't have any excuses and even refused to hire a lawyer. The judge easily sentenced him to 10 years in prison. In fact, Tomek already knew the moment Holly stepped into the police station. He didn't stop him, nor did he put any pressure on the police. He let them sentence him to 10 years in prison. On the observation deck of the castle, Tomek and Mika Kito sat in chairs and looked into the distance. Mika Kito pursed her lips and said, "Godfather, have you ever regretted doing this?" Tomek's expression was indifferent, but his eyes were bleak. "Of course there is regret. I was too confident and thought that I could see through people's hearts. I was wrong. Su Yunqian's pregnancy is something I never expected. Actually, you don't have to blame yourself. If Paul hadn't concealed Su Yunqian's pregnancy..." Tomek raised his hand. "Shen, you don't have to say any more. I originally thought that Su Yunqian had no other feelings for Holly other than using her. That was why I asked Paul to get close to her on purpose to break them up. But I didn't expect that they really loved each other deeply." Tomek closed his eyes in pain. If Paul had told him the truth about Su Yunqian's pregnancy, perhaps he would have asked Paul to stop and even help them for the sake of the child. However, he didn't expect Paul to be selfish. He coveted Su Yunqian's beauty and wanted to trick her. Paul was partly responsible for Su Yunqian's death, so when Holly beat him up, Mika Kito didn't say anything to stop him. The two of them didn't speak again. After a long silence, Tomek slowly said, "I hope Holly can pull himself together soon. Don't you plan to help him?" 10 years was a very long time. Tomek sighed. "That depends on him. If he doesn't want to come out and wants to be depressed for the rest of his life, no one can help him." During the first 3 days of his sentence, Holly didn't eat or drink. He completely isolated himself from the outside world and refused to be visited by anyone. Holly's indifferent attitude angered the prison bully. When the prison bully asked around, he found out that Holly used to be the young master of a mafia family. His mentality was immediately twisted and he planned to bully Holly until he bowed down to him. So, on the 4th day, the prison bully ordered his subordinates to beat Holly up. Holly didn't fight back, nor did he beg for mercy. He lay on the dirty floor barely breathing. In a daze, he seemed to see Su Yunqian waving at him. The prison guard whistled as he ran over. The prison bully kicked Holly's back and spat at his face. He taunted, "What kind of young master are you? You're still lying in front of me like a dead dog. Useless trash, like you should have been thrown into the trash long ago. You guys, what are you doing? The prison bully ran over and pointed his stun baton at the prison bully and the others. The prison bully raised his hands and the others followed suit. Officer, we didn't do anything. You guys, if you cause any more trouble, I won't let you off. The prison bully scolded them fiercely. He called his colleagues over and carried Holly out of the cell. Holly's eyes were slightly open. The light on the dark ceiling was dazzling. He saw Su Yunqian getting closer and closer to him. He couldn't help but move closer to her. But every time he took a step forward, she would take a step back. No matter what, he couldn't touch her. He wanted to tell her that he loved her, that he missed her, that he couldn't leave her. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open his mouth. She retreated further and further with a warm smile on her face. She whispered, Holly, no matter what happens, you have to live well. Together with my share, together with my share, together. Her frail figure gradually disappeared, but the words she said remained clearly in his mind. He slowly moved his fingers. In a daze, he saw people in white coats moving in front of him and heard their conversation. All right, it's okay. There's still a heartbeat. The prison bully and his gang are too arrogant. They should be suppressed. Otherwise, someone will die next time. After that, his eyelids became heavier and heavier. He couldn't hold on any longer and fainted. Holly was seriously injured this time. He was bedridden for a week. After his injuries healed, he seemed to have changed into a different person. Although he still didn't speak, he was no longer depressed. He was even more indifferent. His eyes were as cold as a lake, cold and emotionless. He ate seriously, exercised seriously, and studied seriously. After a week, he defeated the prison bully and his gang by himself and became the new prison bully. A month later, Holly wrote 3 letters and sent them to Tomac, Mikakito, and Xiaodong. In the letter to Tomac, he said that after his parents passed away, he respected his uncle as if he was his biological father. He said that he was deeply sorry for letting down his uncle's expectations of him. He said that he would turn over a new leaf and become a better person. After reading the letter, Tomac's eyes were filled with tears. He contacted the prison on the same day, hoping that they could help reduce Holly's sentence. In the letter to Mikakito, there were only 2 short sentences. Ashin, I used to treat you as a brother. Are you still willing to treat me as a brother? Mikakito didn't reply to him. The letter to Xiaodong was the one Holly spent the most time on. He wrote a few sentences but felt unsatisfied. He tore it up and rewrote it several times before he could finish it. Xia, I hope that after all that has happened you won't mind me calling you that. The first time I saw you it was very cold. You were wearing a white cashmere coat and a woolen hat with 2 pom-poms hanging down. You had a bright smile like the sun shining into the castle. At that time I thought that I liked this girl with a clean smile and I wanted to protect her. Later I wanted too many things and I felt the pressure from Ashin. He was very outstanding and compared to him I was like a piece of trash. I felt that I couldn't raise my head in front of him, and I was getting less and less valued by my uncle. I hated this feeling. 2 years ago, I overheard a conversation between my uncle and Ashin. I knew that my uncle was very dissatisfied with me and wanted to let Ashin take care of the family. I was angry and decided to take back what was mine. Since then I have done many things to hurt Ashin. I knew that Ashin cared about you, so I didn't hesitate to use you to hurt him. I've long been blinded by my anger and desire to protect you. I've even forgotten the promise I made to protect you. Xia, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want to tell you that I really feel very guilty. If I had the chance to do it all over again, I would never hurt you again. I promised Xiao Guai that I would go to the hospital to visit her. Now I have to go back on my word. Please tell her that I love her. I have always wanted to have a daughter as cute as her. Also, I want to apologize to you on behalf of Yunqian. I'm sorry. Holly, thank you. Xiaodong sobbed after reading the letter. Her tears had already soaked the letter. Bailey Han held her tightly in his arms. If you want to see him, we can go visit him. 2 days later, their request for a visit was answered. Holly was willing to see them. They sat across from each other through the glass, each holding a walkie-talkie in their hands. Holly had lost a lot of weight. He looked at Xiaodong with a sincere smile on his lips. Xia, I didn't expect that you would be willing to see me. Xiaodong felt a lump in her throat. She smiled. Holly, Xiao Guai asked me to tell you that Ashin is her number 1 godfather. You are her number 2 godfather. She also said that if you don't want to, she will ignore you. Holly's eyes sparkled. He smiled and said, I'm willing. Although it's only number 2, I'm willing. Xiaodong stared into his eyes and said slowly, Holly, the harm you have caused to our family is a foregone conclusion. I will not forgive you. Holly's expression darkened. He laughed self-deprecatingly. I know. I'm really sorry. So, Xiaodong continued, I want to punish you. I want you to be my older brother for the rest of your life. You want to protect me and love me. Holly was slightly stunned. His eyes quickly filled with surprise. He almost jumped up and said, I accept the punishment. Xiaodong saw that he was as surprised as a child and smiled. Holly, Ashen asked me to tell you something. Holly looked at her nervously. What is it? A powerful novel. Hangxia 866. Chapter 308. Xiaodong said slowly, Brother Shin said that he'll only forgive you this once. Holly was stunned. What does that mean? Xiaodong laughed and scolded, Idiot, it means that he forgives you but only this once. If there's a next time he'll chop you to death with a knife. Holly's eyes shone brighter and brighter. He trembled and turned his head to avoid Xiaodong's gaze. Something shiny rolled from his eyes to the ground. Xiaodong pretended not to see it and smiled brightly. Holly, Godfather also asked me to pass a message to you. Perform well and strive for a reduction in your sentence. Come out soon. Our whole family is waiting for you. Holly rubbed his nose and said in a hoarse voice, I will, xianxia. Help me take care of Uncle. Okay. Holly performed very well in prison. With Tomac's help, his sentence was reduced 3 times in a row and his sentence was shortened from 10 years to 5 years. During his time in prison he had been working hard to improve himself. Just as Tomac said, he had been reborn. After he was released from prison, Mika Kito handed over the management of the Dark Knight family to him. Holly became the greatest leader of the Italian mafia after Tomac. His only regret was that he was never married. These were all stories for later, so let's not talk about them for now. Before they knew it, it was already February. According to China's tradition, the Spring Festival was coming. Xiao Guai had recovered and Bailey Han decided to take his wife and child back to China to reunite with his family. Tomac had already handed over the management of the Dark Knight family to Mika Kito. Mika Kito had to live in Rome for a while. Bailey Han's family said goodbye to Tomac and Mika Kito and took a private jet back to a city. On the day they returned it was very cold. Xiaodong and Xiao Guai had stayed in the warm Rome for too long. When they got off the plane they were still a little uncomfortable and their cheeks were red from the cold. Bailey Han held Xiao Guai tightly in his arms, while Xiaodong held Hai Hai. The family of 4 got into the Rolls-Royce that came to welcome them. The Rolls-Royce drove into Bailey's mansion. The butler and the servants stood in 2 rows at the gate and bowed respectfully. Welcome home, young master and madam. Hearing the uniform greeting, Old Madam, by Jinxiu, and the others had already rushed to the door of the living room. Old Madam's eyes were red and she said excitedly, It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao stood beside Old Madam with their hands behind their backs like adults. They suppressed their joy and let the adults have the right to speak first. Grandma Mom, Bailey Han put Xiao Guai on the ground and walked forward to hug Old Madam. Grandma, we're back. Okay, Old Madam choked with sobs. Xia, come in. Don't catch a cold. Bai Jinxiu returned to China with her 2 little grandsons after taking care of Xiaodong in Rome. During her time in Rome, the relationship between her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was very harmonious. She reached out and hugged Hai Hai in Xiaodong's arms. Let me see. Little Hai Hai has grown so big. Great-grandma, don't be sad. We're all back. You should be happy. Xiao Guai raised her pink little face and tugged at Old Madam's fingers. Yes, Giga is right. We should be happy. Old Madam smiled and wiped the corners of her eyes. She bent down and touched Xiao Guai's soft hair and smiled kindly. We haven't seen each other for more than half a year. Our Xiao Guai has grown prettier. Xiao Guai smiled brightly. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao ran to her side and grabbed her little hands. Xiao Yi raised her little face and said, Great-grandma, Gigai's hands are so cold. Let's take her to the fireplace to warm her up. Okay, go quickly. Don't freeze. Old Madam knew that the 3 little guys must have a lot to talk about, so she smiled and waved her hand. The 3 little guys were sitting on the thick carpet in front of the fireplace, chatting happily and laughing from time to time. The 4 adults were sitting on the sofa not far behind them, talking about the recent events at home. The atmosphere was warm and harmonious. Big brother, sister-in-law, you're finally back. Boo-hoo. Knowing that Bailey Han and the others were back, Bailey Jing got off work early. As soon as she stepped into the living room, she ran to Bailey Han to complain. Xiao Jing, you're already a big girl. Why are you still so unruly? Bailey Han grabbed Bailey Jing's collar and pulled her off him. moving her to the sofa next to him. Bailey Jing's beautiful face scrunched up and she complained tearfully, "Half a year. It's been more than half a year. Big brother, if you didn't come back, I would have been driven to death by those old men on the board of directors." Bailey Han raised his eyebrows in amusement. "Didn't you do well? I heard from Lu Zihao that you even negotiated a joint venture last month." Bailey Jing raised her finger and complained one by one, "What's the use of just negotiating a joint venture? Those old men on the board of directors always use the excuse that I'm too inexperienced and too young to impeach me and kick me out. Also, they criticize me for coming to work too late and leaving too early. Hey, I'm only 10 minutes late and left 5 minutes early. Is there a need to criticize me like this? No matter what, I'm still the acting CEO. Also, they say that my clothes are too unconventional and not suitable for the company's atmosphere. Look, how am I unconventional? Do they have to force me to dress like a 50-year-old old woman?" She stood up and struck a pose for Bailey Han and Xiaodong to see. Only then did Xiaodong notice that Bailey Jing was wearing a red low-cut woolen sweater, a knee-length black leather skirt, and a pair of 10-centimeter high leather boots. With her wavy hair, she looked very charming and charming. Bailey Han obviously noticed it too and his face darkened. "You're not allowed to wear clothes with such a low neckline." Bailey Jing snorted. "But everyone says that I look very beautiful dressed like this. Also, I don't have a boss who specifically threw a pen on the ground and asked me to pick it up. Why can't I wear this?" Xiaodong couldn't help but laugh. A boss who threw a pen on the ground and asked his sexy female subordinate to pick it up. She wondered if Bailey Han had done something like this before. She turned to look at Bailey Han and teased, "Hubby, have you ever thrown a pen on the ground and asked your sexy female secretary to pick it up?" Bailey Han's mouth twitched. "Honey, how could I do such a vulgar thing?" "Yes." Xiaodong deliberately dragged out the last word. Her tone sounded like she was questioning his words. Bailey Han's face darkened. "Honey, are you doubting me?" Xiaodong held back her laughter. "I heard that many CEOs like to flirt with their female subordinates, so I was just casually asking. I really didn't mean to doubt you." "You're getting more and more ridiculous. What nonsense is in your head?" Bailey Han reached out and knocked her forehead in annoyance. "Hey, isn't that how it's written on TV and in novels? Also, it's written in the newspapers." Xiaodong held her forehead and winked at Bailey Jing. Bailey Jing understood and returned her a playful smile. She picked up her handbag and was ready to slip away. She had already slipped to the staircase and thought she was in a safe zone. Unexpectedly, Bailey Han suddenly said in a deep voice, "Stop right there." Bailey Jing's face was bitter. She turned her head stiffly and laughed dryly. She pointed to the stairs. "Big brother, I won't disturb you flirting with sister-in-law. I'll go upstairs first." Bailey Han's mouth twitched. "Come here." Okay. Bailey Jing knew that her big brother was about to start giving her a political and ideological lesson. She moved in front of him reluctantly. "Don't think that I don't know that your sister-in-law is covering for you." Bailey Han snorted with a sour expression. He pointed to the sofa opposite him. "Sit down." Bailey Jing sat down with a bitter face. "Big brother, you just came back and you're already lecturing me. Do you have to be so cruel?" Bailey Han said indifferently, "Who asked you to be so immature? As the CEO, your dressing will affect the company's image and your image in the hearts of the employees. Do you want to become the sexual fantasy of all the male employees?" Xiaodong and Bailey Jing almost fell to the ground. How could he say those words with such a calm tone and expression? "What? You have nothing to say?" Bailey Jing was speechless. "Big brother, you've already scared us." Xiaodong coughed and spoke up for Bailey Jing. "Hubby, it's actually not as exaggerated as you say. You can't destroy everyone's personality just because it's the workplace. I think that Jing's dressing is quite beautiful. She's already very conscious of her limits. Although the woolen sweater was a low-cut design, it didn't expose any parts of her body that shouldn't be exposed. It only highlighted her exquisite collarbone. The leather skirt was also knee-length, so the matter wasn't as serious as Bailey Han said. Bailey Han stared at Xiaodong with a half-smile. "So, you think this is normal?" "Yes." Xiaodong nodded fearlessly. "Very good, my dear wife. You've been stripped of your right to wear clothes of this standard." Bailey Han smiled and patted her head, like a big bad wolf that had succeeded in his evil plan. Xiaodong wanted to cry but had no tears. What was this? Why did she suddenly get the attention of the gunfire? Bailey Jing rushed over and hugged Xiaodong. "Sister-in-law, I've implicated you." Xiaodong patted her back and suddenly became smart. "It's okay. Actually, your big brother has been planning this for a long time. He just suddenly found an excuse today." Bailey Jing wiped her eyes and pretended to cry. Sister-in-law, I suddenly feel that we're living under the oppression of an old-fashioned old man. It's so stressful and so pitiful. Xia Dong sighed seriously. Xiao Jing, you finally realized this problem. I'm very relieved because I've been oppressed for a long time. You two don't treat me as if I'm dead. Bailey Han rubbed his throbbing temples. Speaking of being oppressed, why did he feel that he was the one being oppressed? Xia Dong and Bailey Jing covered their mouths and snickered. They had already been stripped of their right to wear low-cut clothes. Weren't they allowed to complain a little? The next day, Bailey Han and his wife took the 4 children to visit their aunt and uncle. Their aunt and uncle were very happy. The whole family ate and chatted happily. They were even more excited than when they were celebrating the new year. Their aunt warmly urged them to stay until they finished dinner. On the way home, Xia Dong was sitting in the front passenger seat with Hai Hai in her arms. She suddenly received a strange text message. Beauty Novel Songshu 566. Chapter 309. Xia Dong heard her phone ring. She opened it and saw a strange text message. I know the whole truth. She frowned and replied, Who are you? After a few seconds the other party replied, Who I am is not important. What's important is that I know your secret. Xia Dong thought for a moment and typed a line of words on her phone. What are you trying to say? Beep beep. Another text message came in. Xiao Bao is not your son. Xia Dong's fingers suddenly tightened. Her body froze and her expression turned ugly. Because they were driving at night, Bailey Han paid more attention to safety. He focused all his attention on the road ahead and asked casually, Who sent the message? A hint of panic flashed across Xia Dong's eyes. She said, It's Siki. Siki heard that I was back and asked me to meet up. Yeah, you haven't seen each other in a long time. You must have a lot to talk about. Bailey Han smiled. Yeah, I don't know how she's doing now. I'm looking forward to meeting her too. Xia Dong replied to the text message as she spoke. Please don't talk nonsense. Xiao Bao is my son. This time the other party replied after about 10 minutes. Xiao Bao is your adopted child. Xia Dong nervously hugged Hai Hai tightly. She was worried that Bailey Han would find out that something was wrong, so she turned off her phone and ignored the mysterious stranger. However, the other party's words were like a stone thrown into the calm lake of her heart, causing ripples. Along the way Xia Dong was restless. She had a bad feeling that her life, which had finally calmed down, was about to be disrupted again. Honey, we're home. Bailey Han opened the car door and took his daughter from her arms. Little Wingzi and his siblings had already jumped out of the back of the car and ran into the villa, chasing after each other. What's wrong? You seem to have something on your mind. Bailey Han glanced at Xia Dong. She lowered her head and looked at the road under her feet seriously. She was so quiet that it was abnormal. No, I was just thinking about where I should meet Siki since it's so cold now. Xia Dong looked thoughtful. Hubby, where do you think we should go? Bailey Han smiled. How about going to the hot springs? Just you and Yi Siki. She had always placed all her focus on the children and rarely had the chance to relax or talk to her friends. He supported her to have her own social circle so that she would not be bored. She smiled and nodded. Sounds good. You're smart. Bailey Han laughed. Go in quickly. It's cold outside. He moved his arm in her direction and she naturally took his arm. At night, while Bailey Han was taking a shower, Xia Dong turned on her phone. There were no unread messages. She hesitated for a while and deleted all the messages sent by the mysterious stranger. For the next 2 days she did not receive any more messages from that person. She comforted herself by thinking that maybe it was just a prank. In the cold winter it was very comfortable to soak in the hot springs. Xia Dong and Yi Siki decided to go to the famous hot springs resort in the suburbs. Before leaving, Xia Dong put on a thick coat and held 2 scarves in her hands. Standing in front of the mirror, she did not know which one to wear. Bailey Han said gently with a smile, Wear the red one. It matches the color of your coat. It's very beautiful. Xia Dong looked at Bailey Han's figure in the mirror. He crossed his arms and leaned leisurely against the door. There was a gentle smile on his handsome face. The corners of her lips curled up. As she tied the scarf she said, Are you really not coming with us? He approached her and hugged her gently from behind. He bit her earlobe and said softly, It's rare for you and Yi Siki to meet. Wouldn't I spoil your mood if I went? If you like, we can go to the hot springs together next time and spend a few days comfortably. Okay. She turned around and put her arms around his neck. She kissed him on the lips. Hubby, you should go to the company today. Xiao Jing is getting calluses on my ears. From the first day Bailey Han returned to China, Bailey Jing wanted to return the Xianxia group to him as soon as possible. However, he refused to take over and continued to live a leisurely life with his wife and children every day. Bailey Jing was so jealous that her eyes turned red. She took the opportunity to whisper in Xia Dong's ear, hoping that she would help her persuade her brother. You and Xiao Jing are so close that it almost makes me jealous. I'm your husband. Why don't you feel sorry for me? Bailey Han bit her lips as if punishing her. Xia Dong hugged him tightly. You're my husband. Of course I feel sorry for you. However, the Xianxia group is your hard work after all. You can't just ignore it, right? Silly, who said I'm ignoring it? Do you think Xiao Jing can reach an agreement with the European side with her fancy moves? Your husband is strategizing and winning from 1,000 miles away. Xia Dong's eyes widened in surprise. Hubby, you're so amazing. Why haven't I seen you work before? Bailey Han leaned against her neck and chuckled. Because you sleep a lot every day. I just make use of the time you sleep. Why did this sentence sound so familiar? Xia Dong blinked and suddenly remembered that a great celebrity once said, "There's no such thing as a genius. I just use the time other people spend drinking coffee on work." Hubby, you've worked hard to support our family, Xia Dong said seriously. Bailey Han rubbed her hair. Since you know I've worked so hard, you have to make it up to me. When you come back tonight, I'm going to eat meat. Hubby, don't suddenly change the topic. Moreover, it suddenly jumped to a restricted topic. Xia Dong puffed up her cheeks and her eyes were wet. She looked pitiful. Bailey Han pinched her cheek. Okay, I promise you. I'll go to the company early so that you can report to Xiao Jing. Are you satisfied? Yes, yes, she nodded and inadvertently glanced at the clock. She exclaimed, oh no, it's getting late. I'm going to be late. Don't worry. Yisiki won't mind. No, I can't. We agreed to meet at the cafe, and then we'll go to the resort together in my car. She'll get anxious if we wait too long. Xia Dong hurriedly picked up his handbag and stuffed his phone, wallet, and other belongings into it. I'll ask Old Chin to drive you there. Before you finish, call Old Chin in advance and ask him to pick you up. Bailey Han grabbed her arm and stopped her from leaving in a hurry. He held her hand and went downstairs. Then he called the chauffeur and gave him a few instructions. Hubby, I'm leaving. Okay, have fun. Call me if anything happens. Bailey Han helped her adjust her scarf and then opened the car door for her. Go in quickly. It's too cold outside. Xia Dong rolled down the window and waved at Bailey Han. Bailey Han casually put his hands in his trouser pockets. He watched the car drive out of the gate of the manor before he turned around and went back. The car stopped outside the cafe. Xia Dong asked Old Chin to wait in the car. She walked into the cafe to look for Yisiki. When she saw Yisiki, she was shocked. Yezi, is this still you? Yisiki stood up and looked at her with a smile. Of course it's me. Come here and let me give you a hug. Xia Dong approached her and gave her a bear hug. She couldn't help but touch her short hair. Why did you cut your hair? You even put on makeup and wore such beautiful clothes. I almost couldn't recognize you. Yisiki smiled and said, only you can become prettier, but I can't. Xia Dong looked her up and down. Not only did you become prettier, but you also lost a lot of weight. Did you lose weight? The smile on Yisiki's face faded and there was an imperceptible sadness between her brows. Let's not talk about it. Let's hurry up and go. We can talk about it when we soak in the hot spring. That's true. Anyway, we have a whole day today. Xia Dong smiled and held her hand. Old Chin drove them to the hot spring resort in the suburbs. Bailey Han had already booked a room for them. The waiter led them to change their clothes and they entered a semi-enclosed bathroom. The pool was steaming hot and foggy. There were some grotesquely shaped rockery beside the pool. A screen with classic China landscape paintings surrounded the pool. Looking past the screen, they could see lush trees and even hear the chirping of birds. The place was filled with the smell of nature. Xia Dong and Yisiki soaked in the hot spring. Their pores were relaxed and they sighed in comfort. Xia Dong glanced at Yisiki, who was leaning against the wall of the pool. Yezi, how have you been for the past 6 months? Yisiki closed her eyes and said calmly, we might have to get a divorce. Xia Dong's heart thumped. She stared at her face in disbelief. How did this happen? Is there really no turning back? Yisiki slowly opened her eyes and smiled faintly. There was an indescribable fatigue in her smile. I'm already tired. Maybe it's better for both of us to break up. Xia Dong moved closer to her. After hesitating for a long time, she asked, Yezi, do you still love him? So what if I do? Love can't withstand so much hurt. Yisiki's eyes were covered with a layer of mist. Xiaxia, you don't know how tired I am. I'm really tired. It's okay, it's okay. Xiaodong hugged her. No matter what decision you make, I'll always support you. Don't forget you still have me. Yisiki wiped the corners of her eyes. After a moment she pushed Xiaodong away. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We've almost seen each other naked, yet we're still hugging each other. Feels so weird. Xiaodong crossed her arms and put on a defensive expression. Don't you have any ideas about me? I'm already taken. Yisiki rolled her eyes. Don't be so disgusting. The two of them teased each other for a while. Yisiki glanced at her and said, You've cleared up all the misunderstandings. Bailey Han's family has already accepted you. It's time for the best. Xiaodong leaned back against the smooth wall of the pool. She looked a little absent-minded. I'm a little worried. I hope they don't find out about that. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 310. Yisiki looked puzzled. What else is there? Xiaodong pinched her forehead. Xiao Bao's background. Yisiki's expression froze. After a while she said, There hasn't been any problems in the past 5 years, so there shouldn't be any problems in the future. Her tone was full of uncertainty. Xiaodong looked at the woods beyond the screen. A few days ago, a mysterious person sent me a text. He said that he knew that Xiao Bao was my adopted child. I comforted myself by telling myself that it was just a prank, but... She suddenly turned her head and looked at Yisiki. She said slowly, Besides the director of the orphanage, only you and Brother Shin know about this. Obviously you wouldn't play such a prank on me. Yisiki frowned. Her voice was hoarse. What else did the mysterious person say? Xiaodong shook her head. After I switched off my phone he stopped harassing me. I don't know who he is or what he wants to do, but I can't help but feel uneasy. We already have a peaceful life, so I don't want it to be disturbed by that incident. Yisiki thought for a moment. Have you ever thought of telling Bailey Han and his family the truth? I have, but I have my concerns. Firstly, I'm worried that I'll hurt Xiao Bao's feelings. Secondly, I'm worried that Bailey's family won't dote on Xiao Bao anymore after they find out the truth. Xiaodong rubbed her temples with her slender fingers. No matter how I think about it, Xiao Bao will be the one who will be hurt the most. This is the outcome I don't want to see. Then what do you plan to do? I'll take it one step at a time. Let's see what the mysterious person wants to do first. He suddenly sent a few text messages and then disappeared. Perhaps he's playing hard to get and wants to force me into a corner. I have a feeling that he will contact me again. You can tell Bailey Han the truth and face this matter together with him. Yisiki sank into the bathtub. The warm water flowed over her neck and the mist seemed to fill her eyes. Her eyes were wet. Xianxia, based on my experience, it's best to be honest with each other. Don't hide anything. Otherwise, when there's a crisis of trust between the two of you, there will be cracks in your relationship. Xiaodong followed her example and sank into the bathtub. Okay, I'll think about how I should tell him. She didn't know how to tell Bailey Han that Xiao Bao wasn't his son. The two of them soaked for a long time. When they came out of the bathtub, it was already afternoon. They changed their clothes, had lunch, and went to the KTV room to karaoke. The two of them hugged each other shoulder to shoulder as the wind howled. They laughed and played to their heart's content until their voices became hoarse. Only then did they collapse on the sofa and burst out laughing, venting all the pressure and worries that had accumulated in their hearts. The two of them walked out of the KTV room with their arms around each other's shoulders. They couldn't contain their excitement as they danced around, attracting a lot of attention. Among them, there was a pair of gays who had their arms around each other's shoulders. They walked towards them about 10 meters away and looked at them passionately as if they had seen their own kind. Xiaodong poked Yisiki with her finger and laughed sinisterly. Yezi, look at that pair. They're looking at us with such passionate eyes. They must think that we're a couple too. Yisiki turned to glance at them and commented in a serious tone, the top one is tall and the bottom one is delicate and charming. They're a good match. Xiaodong waved at the two of them. Hey, I wish you both happiness. The bottom was so touched that tears welled up in his eyes. He waved back. I wish you both happiness too. Yisiki grinned from ear to ear. Thank you. The two of them nodded at each other and walked past each other. The onlookers shook their heads. What a pity. Such a beautiful woman and such a handsome man. How could they be gay? After walking some distance, the two of them hid in the corridor and laughed. Xiaodong's eyes were filled with tears. I haven't been so happy in a long time. I suddenly remembered that when we were in university, we also teased Lin Shihao like this. She stopped talking abruptly. Yezi, I'm sorry, it's okay. Yisiki patted her on the shoulder and grinned. I'm not a porcelain doll that will break at the slightest touch. Now that you mention it, I remember. At that time Lin Shihao and I were not in a relationship yet. He bought breakfast for me every day and waited for me to go to class with him. The other girls in the hostel said that Lin Shihao had a crush on me. You came up with this idea saying that you wanted to provoke him into confessing to me. What happened in the end? Yi Siki stared at Xia Dong with a smirk. Xia Dong touched her nose gloomily. In the end, Lin Shihao said, "Stop fooling around. I know that there's nothing wrong with your sexual orientation. Speaking of which, it's all your fault for being too stiff." Xia Dong shamelessly pushed all the blame to her. How is my acting bad? You're the one who watched too many dramas and came up with some sour lines that ruined the whole show, okay? It's all your fault. It's all your fault. The two of them disappeared into the corridor, leaving behind the sound of arguing and laughter. Everyone should have a very important friend in their life. That way they wouldn't feel lonely when they were hurt and lost. It was past 5 in the afternoon. The sky was very gloomy. It seemed like it was going to snow again. Xia Dong and Yi Siki were wrapped up tightly. When they came out of the resort, Old Chin had already parked the car at the gate. Xia Dong asked Old Chin to send Yi Siki home first. The two of them hugged and said goodbye. Yi Siki was carrying the gift that Xia Dong brought back from Rome. He smiled and waved his hand. Be careful on the road. Say hello to Bailey Han and the little guys for me. By the way, bring Hai Hai out next time. I haven't seen her yet. Xia Dong lowered half the window and smiled. Got it. Hurry up upstairs. Your Nyonyo must be waiting anxiously. Xia Dong walked into the living room and saw Bailey Han sitting by the fireplace with Xiao Guai in his arms. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were sitting around them. The three children were listening attentively to Bailey Han's story. The corners of Bailey Han's lips curled up slightly, and his deep and magnetic voice rang out in the spacious living room. Xia Dong approached them and could tell that he was telling the story of the treasured lotus lamp. His voice was deep and slow, and it was especially infectious. No wonder the children were so engrossed in it. Xia Dong didn't want to disturb their warm atmosphere, so she quietly walked to their side and sat on the sofa opposite Bailey Han. Bailey Han looked up at her, and the smile on his lips deepened. He stroked Xiao Guai's hair and said, "Today's story ends here. If you want to know what will happen in the future, listen to the next episode." Daddy, continue. I want to hear more. Daddy, you're really keeping me in suspense. I'm just getting to the best part. The three little guys pouted their little faces. Bailey Han ignored their protests and raised his eyebrows with a smile. It's almost time for dinner. Let's continue tomorrow. All right then. The little ones all had helpless expressions on their faces. Xia Dong couldn't help laughing. She joked, "Honey, do you know what I hated the most when I read martial arts novels?" Under the soft light, Bailey Han's handsome face appeared even more charming. There was a smile on his face as he said, "To know what will happen in the future, please listen to the next round." That's right. This sentence always pops up at the most exciting times. She shrugged and looked helpless. It's just too much of a scam. Xiao Bao shouted, "This time it's not a scam. It's a scam for our son." He glanced at his dear father with resentment. The meaning in his eyes was self-evident. Bailey Yun pursed his thin lips and raised his eyebrows. He looked like he was saying, "Yes, I'm scamming you. What can you do about it?" Xiao Yi silently turned her head. "Daddy, I suspect that we're not your biological children." Xiao Guai blinked her big eyes. "Mommy, aren't we Daddy's biological children?" Xia Dong's heart suddenly tightened. She clenched her fists and her mind went blank for a moment. By the time she reacted, Xiao Bao was already in front of her and staring at her in confusion. "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you in a daze?" Xia Dong glanced around and saw that everyone was looking at her with concern, especially Bailey Han. His dark eyes were full of concern. She quickly waved her hand and smiled. "It's nothing. Maybe I've been in the hot spring for too long. My mind isn't very clear." "What did you say just now?" Xiao Bao touched her head and sighed. "Mom, I suspect that you have Alzheimer's disease. You should go to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow." Xia Dong deliberately put on a stern face. She pinched Xiao Bao's pink cheeks with both hands and kneaded them like dough. "Little rascal, how dare you laugh at me?" Xiao Bao's pink face was distorted by the kneading. She cried out with tears in her eyes, Dad, save me. Mom is domestic violence. Son, I can't help you." Bailey Han coughed and stood firmly on his wife's side. He gave his son a look that said, "Good luck to you." Xiao Yi reached out and covered Xiao Guai's round eyes. She whispered, "It's so violent. It's not suitable for minors to watch." Xiao Guai cried out in surprise. Hey brother E, you're underage too. You should cover your eyes too. Hey you guys. Do you still have any humanity left in you? How could you just stand by and watch as mom tragically kills me? Xiao Yi said seriously. You're wrong. How could we just stand by and watch as mommy tortures you? We've already closed our eyes. Xiao Bao blinked his big watery eyes pitifully. Oh, I can't live like this anymore. I want to run away from home. All right. I'm just teasing you. Xia Dong held his little face and said with a smile, Come, let mommy give you a kiss. You'll get better soon. No. Xiao Bao turned his head away arrogantly and raised his little chin. Don't be angry, my good son. Xia Dong rubbed his soft hair. Her eyes were filled with warmth and love, but there was also a trace of undetectable sadness. This was the child she had raised for 5 years. Although he was not her biological child, she treated him like one. If it were not for that text message, she would have almost forgotten that Xiao Bao was a child she adopted from an orphanage. Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 311. In the bedroom, the soft light shone down on Xia Dong's body, outlining a warm curve. She sat sideways at the head of the bed with her head slightly lowered. She was holding something in her hand and flipping it slowly. There was a peaceful smile on her face. He couldn't bear to disturb the beautiful peace. Xia Dong felt the mattress beside her sink. Bailey Han's tall and straight body was very close to her, and the faint scent of lemon-scented shower gel wafted into her nose. Honey, what are you looking at? He hugged her from the side and she leaned against his chest. Do you want to see pictures of Xiao Bao and Xiao Guai when they were young? She adjusted her position and placed the album on his lap. Bailey Han's gaze fell on the album. The album was very beautifully made, and it was the first time he had seen the pictures inside. There were pictures of the children at various ages. There was a picture of them when they were 6 months old. The 2 pink Xiao Bao babies were placed in a wooden basin, and their 2 pairs of small hands were tightly grasping the sides of the basin. Their 2 pairs of beautiful big eyes were staring in front of them with a surprised expression. Xia Dong pointed at the picture and laughed. Brother Shin took this picture for them. At that time, I took the rattle and shook it in front of them to attract their attention. There was a picture of Xiao Guai when they were 1 year old. She was wearing a beautiful little dress and cute cat ears on her head. Xiao Bao was wearing a small short-sleeved shirt and shorts, and he was wearing silly brown bear ears on his head. The 2 babies stood facing each other. Xiao Bao was holding a bunch of wild grass flowers in his hand, and he handed it to Xiao Guai. Xiao Guai tilted her head and looked at him with a thoughtful expression, as if she didn't understand why her brother would give her flowers. Xia Dong leaned into Bailey Han's arms and laughed. Honey, look at them. Aren't they very cute? Bailey Han stroked her hair and his eyes were filled with love. It seems that I have missed a lot of good times. She looked up at him. It's okay. I have already recorded all the good times for you. She kissed his sharp chin and jumped down from his arms. Wait for me, I'll get something for you. She wore slippers and hopped into the storage room. Her back was full of energy like a cheerful little rabbit. Bailey Han raised his eyebrows in amusement and continued to admire the album. The more he looked at the album, the more Mika Kito appeared. Almost half of the photos were taken with him, Xia Dong and the children. His gaze deepened. Through the photos he saw the warmth of Mika Kito and Xia Dong. There was something called jealousy brewing in his heart. Hubby, Xia Dong suddenly ran to his side and hugged his neck from behind. She leaned against his back and held something in her hand in front of him. It was a CD. This is the video that Brother Shin took for us every year for our children's birthdays. I'll play it for you. She smiled. He pursed his lips and slowly said, Okay. Xia Dong ran to the TV with the CD and put it on the DVD player. Soon, the video appeared on the LCD wall-mounted TV. There were a total of 4 birthdays and a total of 1.5 hours of editing. It was like a romantic fairy tale. There were cute princesses and princes, beautiful queens and handsome knights. It was a pity that there was no handsome king. Seeing how close Mika Kito and Xia Dong were, the smile in Bailey Han's eyes faded and the corners of his lips tightened. Xia Dong looked back at the past few years with the video and felt depressed. She didn't know if Xiao Bao would still be willing to be her son after knowing the truth. Bailey Han was so jealous that he didn't notice Xia Dong's abnormal mood. He suddenly reached for the remote control and turned off the TV. He pulled her into his arms, lifted her chin and kissed her lips. His kiss was fierce and hurried. It was full of aggressiveness as if he wanted to devour her. He was rarely so rough with her. She couldn't breathe properly and clutched the bathrobe in front of his chest tightly. Hubby, she murmured uneasily and panted softly. I'm jealous. His voice was low and hoarse. His lips lingered by her ear and he bit her sensitive earlobe with a little force. She couldn't help but cry out in pain. He stroked her back with both hands and whispered, "In the past 5 years your relationship with Mikakito was so good that it made me jealous?" He bluntly complained about his dissatisfaction. He quickly took off the bathrobe on her and suddenly pressed her under his body. His eyes were terrifyingly dark. She shrank her shoulders. She didn't expect him to suddenly mention Mikakito. She bit her lips in grievance and her eyes were hazy with tears. Her voice was mixed with a trace of gentleness. "I only treated him as an older brother. You said that you would understand. I can't understand it now." Bailey Han forcefully kissed her lips and his hands were on fire all over her body. If it was said that before he saw these photos and videos he was 100% jealous of Beidang Xin, then now his jealousy towards him had reached 200%. He hated that he had lost his memory for 5 years and that she had been able to leave him for 5 years. As a result, Mikakito had played an important role in her and their child's lives. He hated that he had been absent from their lives for 5 years. When she needed support and help the most, he couldn't be by her side. Xia Dong hugged this irritable man who seemed to be in puberty. She tried to use her gentleness to defuse his sudden anger. She hooked her arms around his neck and raised her head. Her soft lips kissed his chin and then wandered around his face, the corner of his lips, the high bridge of his nose, his full forehead and finally the tip of his cold ear. She stuck out the tip of her tongue and gently licked it. His body suddenly trembled. His clear black and white eyes stared into her eyes. The corners of her eyes were full of smiles. She said softly, "Hubby, no matter what happened in the past, the one who is by my side now is you. In the future only you will be by my side." His eyes were instantly overflowing with color. Under the soft light, his face was unbelievably beautiful. His brows were slightly furrowed and the veins on his forehead popped out. His face was flushed and it seemed that he had been holding back for a long time. His voice had a unique magnetism. "In the future only me." His tone was firm and domineering. There was no room for discussion. She nodded. "Only you. Wifey, do you still remember what I said today?" His lips curled into a devilish smile. He bent down beside her ear and his hot breath tickled her ear. His hand gently kneaded her soft pink ear. Her cheeks were flushed red. That scorching breath enveloped her and she almost suffocated. Her hands and feet were already unable to exert any strength. Following his movements, her delicate voice died down. "You don't remember? I think, it wasn't anything good?" He suddenly held her butt and slapped it hard. There was a mischievous smile in his voice. "You're so naughty. You actually forgot what I said. It hurts." She furrowed her brows and bit her lips. She looked like she was about to cry and it made his heart skip a beat. He turned her over and his voice was filled with annoyance. "Let me see." 5 clear fingerprints were left on her fair and tender skin. Her skin was delicate to begin with. Even if he held her arm tightly, it would leave a mark, not to mention his heavy slap. He wanted to be naughty, but he didn't expect that he couldn't control his strength. The tips of Bailey Han's ears were slightly red. He was extremely annoyed and bent down to kiss the clear fingerprints. Xia Dong felt something soft land on her butt. It was like a feather moving gently around the area that he had slapped. Then the tip of a wet tongue licked her skin. She was so shocked that her back arched slightly. "Hubby, don't." She shyly moved her body, but his palm held her down tightly. He kissed her back slowly and a numb feeling instantly rose from the bottom of her feet to the top of her head. Her body trembled violently and her heart felt like it was about to explode. Unknowingly he was already leaning on her back. His hot lips were against her ear and his voice was filled with unbearable desire. "Wifey, do you remember what I said today?" "Boo-hoo. I remember." She had reason to believe that if she didn't surrender, he would torture her until she knelt down and begged for mercy. "What did I say?" He blew hot air into her ear. Her body trembled and her voice was intermittent. You want to eat meat? That's a good girl?" He kissed the tip of her red ear. That night, Bailey Han, who had endured for nearly half a year, finally got what he wanted. He ate a lot of meat. After eating the meat, he carried the unconscious Xia Dong into the bathroom and cleaned her up. Then, he held her in his arms and fell into a deep sleep with a satisfied expression on his face. The next day after Xia Dong woke up, she habitually touched the spot beside her. It was empty and a little cold. Bailey Han must have been awake for a long time. Inexplicably, she felt a little disappointed. She hugged the blanket and sat up from the bed. Her legs were sore. Thinking about their wild behavior last night, she couldn't help but blush and her heart beat faster. She covered her head with the blanket tightly. Beep beep. Her phone rang. Xiaodong picked it up from the bedside table. It turned out to be a message from Bailey Han. Little lazy cat, are you awake? I saw that you were sleeping so soundly this morning, so I couldn't bear to wake you up. Gigai, rest at home. I'll be back early tonight. Xiaodong laughed foolishly and replied, Is it convenient now? At that moment, Bailey Han was sitting in the meeting room facing all kinds of accusations from the group of old men on the board of directors. They blamed him for affecting the company's normal operations for personal matters, for letting the inexperienced Bailey Jing manage the company, and for affecting the company's performance and so on. Don't ask him why he sent a message at this time. It was because he felt that facing this group of old antiques was very boring. Also, his wife should have woken up by now. His phone vibrated with a message notification. Bailey Han glanced indifferently at a certain old antique, who was still talking non-stop, and replied calmly, It's convenient. After replying, he put the phone down on the table and suddenly interrupted old antique. His expression was solemn as he said in a heavy voice, As far as I know, during the time that Bailey Jing has been managing the company's performance has risen by 3 points. The company's operations in all aspects are going well. If you're willing to look through the information in your hands, you'll understand that what I'm saying is true. There was the sound of awkward coughing in the meeting room, as well as the sound of someone flipping through information and a very discordant ringtone. Wifey is calling, wifey is calling. The group of people almost banged their heads on the table. Under their strange gazes, Bailey Han calmly answered the phone and said softly, Wait a minute. He raised his head and swept his gaze over the people in the meeting room. His gentle voice instantly turned cold. Today's meeting is over. He abruptly got up, pushed his chair back and strode out of the room. His voice was gentle again. Wifey, have you had breakfast? He hadn't deliberately lowered his voice, so everyone in the meeting room heard him. Everyone's expressions became very interesting. Lu Zihao very calmly helped his boss tidy up the information on the table. Before he walked out of the meeting room, he gently and kindly reminded everyone who was already petrified, Everyone, the meeting is over. On the other side, Xiaodong scratched her head with a puzzled expression. Just now, I think I heard you say something about a meeting. Did I interrupt your meeting? No, I have to thank you for saving me from that boring meeting. Bailey Han sat on the sofa with his legs crossed and his body stretched out. He had a cheerful expression on his face and the corners of his lips curled up. Actually, it's nothing. Xiaodong's slender fingers clutched the corner of the blanket as she stammered, It's just that what? Bailey Han asked, the smile on his handsome face growing gentler. Xiaodong felt like she was going to throw caution to the wind. She gritted her teeth and said stiffly, It's just that I'm not used to not seeing you when I wake up in the morning. Oh, he said solemnly and didn't respond again. Xiaodong was a little discouraged. She didn't seem to be born with the gift of sweet words. Moreover, his reaction was so cold she was angry and was about to hang up when he suddenly raised his eyebrows. That's it? I thought you would say that you missed me and couldn't bear to part with me. Her eyes widened. After a while, she said softly, Just take it that I meant it. How can I take it that way? Since you missed me, then tell me. I want to hear it from you personally. Bailey Han's gentle voice had a hint of bewitchment. All right, it wasn't like she hadn't said it before. She would just tell him. Fortunately, he couldn't see her blushing face. She was relieved. She lay on the bed and rolled around. Hubby, I missed you. I missed you too. His eyes were full of smiles. He seemed to have thought of something as his lips curled into a mischievous smile. There's an ointment in the drawer on the right. What is it for? The wound on your butt. His words were concise, but she blushed. Her mind couldn't help but think of some scenes that made her blush and her heart race. She knocked on her forehead to stop herself from letting her imagination run wild. She quickly found an excuse to hang up the phone. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat first. Bye-bye. He chuckled. Okay. Xiaodong came out of the bathroom after washing up. When she heard the sound of a message on her phone, she thought it was from Bailey Han again. She quickly took out her phone to check, but she didn't expect to see a message from a stranger. The content of the message made her face turn pale. I'm Xiao Bao's biological mother. Awesome novel, Hongxia 866. Chapter 312. The content of the message made her face turn pale. I'm Xiao Bao's biological mother. Xiaodong bit her lip and hesitated for a while. Finally, with trembling fingers, she dialed the unknown number. Beep beep. The The sound of waiting for the call to be picked up came from the phone. She clutched the phone tightly, her heart pounding like a drum. She was so nervous that her back was sweating. Click, the call was rejected. Xiaodong sat on the fabric sofa dejectedly. She didn't know what the other party wanted. She was typing a message, but before she could choose to send it, the other party had already sent a message. After the spring festival, I'm going back to my son. It seemed that the other party didn't want to talk to her directly and only wanted to communicate through text messages. Xiaodong punched the sofa angrily, deleted the word she had already typed, and typed a new message. I want to meet you. After waiting for about 2 minutes, the other party replied. I'm not in China right now. Be prepared. After the spring festival, I'm going to take my son back. Xiaodong could no longer control her anger and quickly typed a message. What is this? You were the one who abandoned Xiaobao back then and now you want to take him back. Have you considered Xiaobao's feelings? 10 minutes, half an hour, there was still no reply. Xiaodong called again, but the other party had already turned off the phone. I'm so angry. Xiaodong punched the sofa fiercely. She still couldn't vent her anger, so she used the cushion as a punching bag and punched it to vent her anger. Xiaodong thought for a long time and felt that she should first confirm whether the other party was Xiaobao's biological mother. She dug out the phone number of the orphanage in Japan from a secret notebook. After she dialed an international number, she communicated with the orphanage director in Japanese for a long time. About a week ago, a Japanese woman came to our orphanage, saying that she was looking for her lost child. I took out all the photos of the orphans from the past 5 years. The woman looked at them for a long time and finally focused on Xiaobao. She asked a lot of questions about Xiaobao. Xiaodong gritted her teeth and asked, Does that woman have any evidence to prove that she's Xiaobao's biological mother? The director said, I looked at the birth certificate in her hand at that time, and it confirmed that she had given birth to a child. She also said that her son had a small red mole on his buttocks. Xiaodong's heart sank. There was indeed a red mole on Xiaobao's butt. It seemed that the woman who had inquired about him in the orphanage was his biological mother. At that time I gave that woman your phone number and planned to tell you about this matter, but I called your phone and it was turned off. The director's tone was apologetic. I'm very sorry if this matter has caused you any trouble. Xiaodong rubbed her eyebrows helplessly. I happened to be in Rome during that period of time, and I was using an overseas SIM card so I missed your call. Can you tell me her name? Her name is Suzuki Sakura. I don't know much about other information. Okay. Thank you, director. After ending the call, Xiaodong's heart was in a mess. She called Suzuki Sakura, but her phone was still turned off. Ever since she revealed her purpose, she seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth and would only appear after the spring festival. There was a knock on the door. Xiaodong took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. She patted her cheeks and jumped off the sofa to open the door. Mommy? Xiao Guai stood at the door with a smile. Gigai, what's wrong? Xiaodong bent down to pick up her daughter and kissed her pink cheeks. Mommy, it's already past 10. I saw that you hadn't come downstairs, so I thought you were sick, so I came up to see you. Xiaodong smiled. Mommy is fine. She just has something to do upstairs. Come, let's go downstairs. She carried her daughter downstairs and found that it was very quiet. She was a little curious. Gigai, where are the others? Xiao Guai played with her chubby little fingers and said softly, Sister Hai Hai is sleeping. Great-grandma and great-grandpa are in the study. Grandpa and Daddy went to work. And Jing also went to work. Grandma has a date with the other grandmas, so she went out to play. Brother and Brother Yi are building a snowman outside. Xiaodong couldn't help but laugh. She rubbed her beautiful short hair. Gigai is like a loudspeaker, reporting everyone's situation. Xiao Guai blinked her big bright eyes and giggled. The loudspeaker is very loud and my voice is very gentle. The boys in the kindergarten all like my voice. You're so smug, little rascal. Xiaodong pinched her cute little nose. Let's go. Let's go see your 2 little brothers. Before the 2 of them went out, they wrapped themselves in thick down jackets. Xiaodong put a little down hat and a red scarf on Xiao Guai. Then she held her little hand and walked to the back garden where her 2 sons were building snowmen. It snowed heavily last night and the whole world was dyed white. The trees were covered in white coats, and the lawn was covered with snow-white blankets. The diligent servants had already cleared the snow on the road, making it very convenient to walk. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were building snowmen on the snow-covered lawn. The 2 little guys didn't wear down jackets, only thick sweater jackets. Their handsome little faces were red, and their little noses were also red. They were as cute as carrots. They waved little snow shovels and had already built a chubby snowman. It was about a meter tall with a round head and a thick body. It didn't have any facial features or hands yet. "Mommy, I want to play too." Xiaoguai shook Xiaodong's arm. "Okay, go ahead." Xiaodong gently patted her little head. The little girl ran towards her two brothers with a smile. Xiaoyi looked up and grinned, revealing her snow-white teeth. "Mommy, come over and play with us too." Xiaobao chuckled. "Xiaoyi, you don't know. Mommy is most afraid of the cold. She won't come over." "Who said I won't come over? Don't look down on me." Xiaodong snorted and walked over to her two sons through the thick snow. Xiaoyi and Xiaobao covered their mouths and snickered. Xiaoguai tilted her head and looked at the snowman for a while. She frowned slightly and said, "The snowman doesn't have a nose, eyes, or mouth. What are you going to use to replace them?" "Gigai, use this as the eyes and mouth." Xiaoyi slowly took out something from his trouser pocket and extended his hand in front of Xiaoguai. Xiaoguai nodded happily and took two black buttons from his hand. "I'm going to put on the snowman's eyes." She tiptoed, picked up a button and pressed it on the snowman's face. Button a little to the left, a little lower. The children happily dressed the snowman. Xiaodong's lips curled up. She walked not far away, broke off two branches from a tree, and stuck them on both sides of the snowman's body. She raised her eyebrows proudly. "Use this as the snowman's arms. Does it look good?" Xiaobao stared at the hat on her head. His big eyes blinked quickly and he revealed a cute smile. "Mommy, are you cold?" Xiaodong shook her head. "I'm not cold." He pointed at the hat on her head and continued to blink cutely. "Then contribute your hat to the snowman." "Ah, I thought you cared about me." Xiaodong grumbled, but she still willingly contributed the hat and put it on the snowman's head. "I'm still missing a scarf." Xiaobao continued to blink. "Okay, contribute it all." Xiaodong took off the scarf and tied it around the snowman's neck. "Wow, it's so beautiful." Xiaoguai screamed and clapped. "I'm still missing a nose." Xiaoyi rubbed his chin. He took out a finger-thick carrot from his other trouser pocket and pressed it between the snowman's eyes and mouth. "Just perfect now." He grinned. "Wait a minute, I want to take a photo as a souvenir." Xiaodong had an idea. She quickly ran upstairs to get the camera. When she ran to the door of the living room, the butler appeared with a smile and a camera. "Young madam, I'll take a photo for you." "Okay, thank you." The mother and children made various poses around the snowman, and the old butler kept pressing the shutter to record their laughter and laughter. "Let's have a snowball fight." As soon as Xiaobao finished speaking, a snowball flew at his head. He reflexively closed his eyes, and the snowball rolled down his cheek with a plop sound. Broken snow stained his face. "Ha ha ha." The culprit, Xiaoyi, held his stomach and laughed loudly. "Wah, I want revenge." Xiaobao angrily wiped the broken snow off his face. He quickly grabbed a handful of snow from the ground, rolled it into a ball, and threw it at Xiaoyi. Xiaoyi nimbly hid behind Xiaodong, and the snowball hit Xiaodong's abdomen. "Xiaobao, how dare you hit me? I want revenge too." Xiaodong pretended to be angry. She bent down and made a snowball from the ground. Just as she was about to attack Xiaobao, a snowball hit her face. She wiped her face and looked at the culprit, Xiaoguai. She smiled and stuck out her tongue. "Mommy, I didn't do it on purpose." "Why, you two bad children are bullying me." Xiaodong squatted on the ground shamelessly. She lowered her head and rubbed her eyes with the back of her left hand as if she was crying sadly. Xiaoguai felt guilty and walked over with his short legs. "Mommy, don't be angry." "Xiaoguai, don't be fooled. Mom must be playing tricks." Xiaobao was far away from Xiaoguai. He wanted to stop her, but it was too late. Ah, sure enough, Xiaobao was right. Xiaoguai had a snowball on her face. She pouted her pink lips and looked helpless. She was so pitiful. Xiaoyi and Xiaobao ran toward Xiaoguai. "Mommy, you're too cunning." Xiaoyi wiped the snow off Xiaoguai's face with a helpless expression. "All's fair in war," Xiaodong shamelessly said without the slightest bit of guilt. "Humph, let's unite and deal with Mommy together." Xiaobao's suggestion was immediately approved by the other two little rascals. The three children aimed the snowballs in their hands at Xiaodong. "Wah, you guys are going too far." Xiaodong yelled as he tried to fend off the attacks. "Hee, all's fair in war," the three little rascals said in unison, using her words against her. Their laughter echoed in the cold air for a long time. Welfare Songshu 566. Chapter 313. Xiaodong didn't know how to tell Bailey Han about Xiaobao's background. After hesitating for 2 days, they welcomed the spring festival. The old mansion was full of celebration. The servants hung lanterns around the mansion and the couplets written by Bailey Han were pasted on the gate. Bailey Yun had rushed back from America to reunite with his family. Dowdu was the most affectionate towards him and almost pushed him to the ground. She licked his face with her long tongue and saliva was all over his face. They hadn't seen each other for more than half a year, and Bailey Han had become even more mature. He was confident, elegant, and graceful, and his every movement carried a more steady and gentle temperament. He smiled and raised his slender eyes slightly. He hugged his family members one by one. Finally, he stood in front of Xia Dong and the smile in his eyes faded. "Long time no see, sister-in-law." Xia Dong reached out her hand and smiled sincerely. "Welcome back, Ayun." He reached out and held her hand very tightly, as if he wanted to hold her hand in his palm and not let go. Xia Dong tried hard to pull her hand away but failed. Her bright smile became unnatural and she had to remind him. "Ayun." Bailey Yun's lips curled up slightly and he slowly let go of her hand. Bailey Han quietly put his arm around Xia Dong's shoulder and smiled. "Ayun, I heard that your business in America is doing very well. Congratulations." Bailey Yun put his hands in his trouser pockets and raised his eyebrows. "Oh, it's not bad. I plan to enter the China market this summer." Bailey Han patted Xia Dong's shoulder and motioned for her to take care of the children. He reached out and invited Bailey Yun to sit on the sofa. "Father is very happy that you have achieved so much." "Is that so?" Bailey Yun leaned against the sofa and crossed his legs. He looked indifferent and casually glanced at Xia Dong, who was carrying Hai upstairs. There wasn't much to talk about between the two brothers. Soon the two of them fell silent and the atmosphere was a little awkward. Fortunately, Bailey Jing and Xiaoyi ran over. The two of them surrounded Bailey Yun and started chatting. During the reunion dinner, everyone was very happy. Bailey Xiong was in high spirits. Suddenly he picked up food for Bai Jinxiu on a whim. Bai Jinxiu pursed her lips and smiled. Her cheeks were a little hot. Although they had been eating at the same table as each other for decades, this was the first time he took the initiative to pick up food for her. Bai Jinxiu also picked up Bailey Xiong's favorite dishes and put them in his bowl. They looked at each other and smiled. The interaction between the two fell into the eyes of Bailey Yun, who was sitting opposite them. He lowered his eyes slightly to hide the coldness in his eyes. Old Madame Han also saw this scene. She pursed her lips in satisfaction and looked around. When she saw that there were many children and grandchildren in the room, she was even happier. She smiled and said, "Today is a good day for our family to reunite. Except for the children, everyone should drink to celebrate." Old Madame Han was usually very strict and didn't allow the family to drink. She only relaxed her control on festive days and allowed everyone to drink a few glasses. Xia Dong looked up at Bailey Han with a troubled expression. She would get drunk as soon as she drank. What if she got drunk and made a fool of herself? Bailey Han held her hand comfortingly and looked at old Madame Han. "Grandma Xiaxia is not in good health. The doctor said that she can't drink. Let her drink instead." Old Madame Han nodded. "Okay, Xiaxia will drink." The servant came forward and poured wine for everyone, including Xia Dong and the three children. Old Madame Han was very happy today and drank 2 glasses of wine. After eating, she felt a little dizzy and the servant helped her upstairs to rest. Bailey Xiong intended to be a competent father and drank a few more glasses with his 2 sons. The 3 of them sat around the fireplace and chatted. Xia Dong held Hai in her arms and accompanied by Jinxiu to watch TV. The 3 children sat on the thick carpet and played games. Laughter could be heard from time to time. The atmosphere of the whole family was very warm and intoxicating. Xia Dong turned her head to look at Bailey Han. The firelight reflected on his face and outlined the contours of his face. He seemed to feel her gaze and suddenly turned his head. There was a smile in his clear black and white eyes. The corners of her lips couldn't help but curl up. The sound of firecrackers and fireworks could be heard outside. She didn't know why, but she suddenly remembered what Suzuki Chisakura said. She was going to take Xiaobao away after the spring festival. Her mood suddenly became a little down. The pleasant ringtone of the phone interrupted Xia Dong's thoughts. She heard Bailey Xiong answer the phone. "I'm at home now and can't go. Go to bed early. Ayun is back. I'll ask him to visit you tomorrow." It should be Lu Xiaoxiao calling. Xia Dong noticed that Bai Jinxiu's fingers moved and the corners of her lips curled up. Bailey Xiong patted Bailey Yun's shoulder and looked a little drunk. "Ayun, go see your mother tomorrow. She misses you very much." Bailey Yun nodded slightly. "I know, Dad. I'm a little drunk. I'm going upstairs to rest." You should rest early too. Okay, go ahead. Bailey Xiong waved his hand. Bailey Xiong and Bailey Han chatted for a while before the two of them left. Bailey Han took Hai Hai from Xia Dong's arms. The couple said goodnight to the elders and then asked the children to go upstairs to rest. Bailey Xiong sat beside Bai Jinxiu and leaned against the sofa. He whispered lazily, "It's just the two of us now. Do you want to stay up late?" The corners of Bai Jinxiu's lips curled up slightly. Looking at his drunken appearance, she said lightly, "Why stay up late? You're already so drunk. You know that you're getting old, but you don't know how to control yourself." In the past, Bailey Xiong would feel very unhappy when he heard her say such slightly accusatory words. But today he didn't know if it was because he was drunk, but he actually felt that these words sounded very pleasing to his ears. He suddenly stretched out his arm and hugged her, who was sitting upright and still. He put his finger on her lips and smiled. "Why don't you know how to say something nice?" His sudden intimate action made Bai Jinxiu very uncomfortable. Her cheeks were hot and she pushed him. "Hurry up and let go. Be careful not to let the children see." "Then let's go back to the room and not let them see." Bailey Xiong suddenly got up and pulled her up from the sofa. He held her tightly in his arms. "Come, let's go back to the room." Bai Jinxiu was born into a scholarly family and had cultivated a noble and elegant manner since she was young. She had always disdained such unrestrained behavior. Moreover, Bailey Xiong had never treated her like this. At this moment, being held in his arms, she was embarrassed and angry. She lowered her voice and said, "Bailey Xiong, hurry up and let go of me." Bailey Xiong stared fixedly at her face. She usually took good care of herself and there were no wrinkles on her skin. It was delicate and fair like a prostitute's. At this moment she was embarrassed and angry and her skin was faintly pink. He couldn't help but feel a little restless. Under the influence of alcohol, he suddenly carried her up horizontally. Although his steps were messy, he didn't stumble. She nervously grabbed his clothes and whispered, "What are you doing? Hurry up and put me down." He laughed deeply. "Of course I'm carrying you back to the room. Don't be noisy. Be careful not to let the children hear." Bai Jinxiu bit her lip and glared at him angrily. Their room was on the 3rd floor. Fortunately, Bailey Xiong paid attention to exercise and Bai Jinxiu was very light, so he was able to successfully carry her upstairs. After they entered the bedroom and closed the door, Bailey Yun's figure flashed out from the corner of the stairs. He stared at the door with a deep gaze and gripped the phone tightly in his hand. "Hey, Ayun, why are you suddenly not talking?" Lu Xiaoxiao's voice came from the phone. He put the phone to his ear and said in a deep voice, "I advise you to leave Bailey Xiong as soon as possible." Lu Xiaoxiao was stunned. "Ayun, why are you suddenly saying that?" Bailey Yun's lips curled into a mocking smile. In the past, after the reunion dinner, you could summon Bailey Xiong over with a phone call. Tonight you can't. Haven't you thought about the reason? Lu Xiaoxiao was silent for a moment and said, "I know. He rarely comes to my place recently, but I've been with him for so many years. How can I be willing to give up?" The mocking smile on his lips became more obvious. "After so many years you're still dreaming of being a rich lady. When will you wake up?" "Maybe I won't wake up for the rest of my life." Her tone was a little lonely. She shouldn't be like this. She was flirtatious, she was unrestrained, she was good at flattery, and she was very shrewd in planning for herself. This tone didn't suit her. Bailey Yun held the phone and the veins on the back of his hand throbbed. He said in a deep voice, "Do you love him?" She didn't respond. Her silence represented everything. His voice was cold. "I thought you never loved him." Lu Xiaoxiao laughed self-deprecatingly. "I used to think it was for money and status. Later, after he distanced himself from me, I realized that I had already fallen. You'd better give up on that thought. It's not too late to escape now. He's already being intimate with his wife. There's no place for you, the third party, between the two of them." His words were cold and ruthless, and they ruthlessly tore open Lu Xiaoxiao's scars. She was silent for a long time before she said, "I know." Bailey Yun said coldly, "Although I don't want to admit it, I'm your son. I'll be responsible for raising you. Don't betray yourself anymore." Lu Xiaoxiao laughed. "Ayun, you've grown up." Bailey Yun's face was cold. "I'm hanging up." "Thank you, son." She said the last two words very softly, but he heard them clearly. His heart trembled and he hung up the phone without hesitation. There was no one in the living room and the entire villa was quiet. Bailey Yun leaned against the railing and looked at the dark sky. He suddenly laughed, but that smile was very cold and very bleak. Dowdu was lying at his feet and from time to time, he would raise his head to look at him. Bailey Yun rubbed his furry head and laughed self-deprecatingly. Everyone is in pairs. We're the only ones left. In a distant place, the lights were shining brightly. That was the location of the city. He suddenly felt a little lonely. He wanted to know how many people were like him without a home on New Year's Eve. He put on his coat, took his car keys, and drove his flashy Ferrari into the night. Charm Bar. It was very deserted and there were only a few people. Bailey Yun sat at the bar counter and ordered a cup of Bloody Mary. Under the dim light, the color of blood was indescribably strange. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 314. Bailey Yun took out his phone and called Xiao Tianxing. I'm at your bar. Come out and have a drink with me. Xiao Tianxing's voice was very low. Tomorrow. Now the old man is educating me. Bailey Yun chuckled. Okay, I wish you a safe retreat. Xiao Tianxing sighed helplessly. He wanted to say something, but his father's roar came from the other end. Which rascal is calling you again? It's the new year. Are you going to go out and cause trouble? I'm hanging up. Xiao Tianxing hurriedly said and hung up the phone. Bailey Yun stared at his phone and shook his head with a smile. He made a few more calls to his former friends, but none of them had time to accompany him. Some said they wanted to accompany their families, some said they wanted to accompany their girlfriends, and the most ridiculous one said he wanted to work overtime. At a critical moment, no one can be relied on. Bailey Yun shook his head and threw his phone on the bar counter. He gave up on looking for his friends to drink with him. The crisp sound of high heels could be heard. The bar was deserted and there was no entertainment. Bailey Yun naturally turned around and decided to kill some time. A slim figure appeared at the door. The doorman helped her take off her coat and she walked over in a pair of high-heeled leather boots that were more than 10 centimeters high. She was wearing a red sweater dress, black stockings, and black sheepskin boots. Her wavy hair was draped over her shoulders and she had a great figure. Bailey Yun gave her a score of 90. As she walked closer, Bailey Yun could clearly see her face. It was a charming and delicate face, with curved willow leaf eyebrows, tender eyes, and a bit of charming crimson lips. Her appearance added a warm atmosphere to the deserted bar. All the men stared at her in amazement. Some of them were already eager to try and hit on her. Bailey Yun was a little dispirited. He raised his eyebrows and turned around indifferently to slowly taste his cocktail. The sound of her footsteps was particularly clear in the empty bar. He clearly heard her walk to his side and sit down beside him. Her voice was as gentle as water as she said, "I'll have a glass of Bloody Mary." Her Mandarin was a bit clumsy. She had a foreign accent and an oriental face. Bailey Yun was sure that she was either Korean or Japanese. His slender fingers held the wine glass and gently swirled it as he looked at the wine glass lazily. The beauty suddenly chuckled. "No man has ever ignored my existence like you do." Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows and looked at her sideways. He narrowed his eyes and said, "I don't like women like you." The beauty covered her mouth and chuckled. Her movements were extremely charming. "You're really direct. Someone once told me that he likes charming women like me the most. Is that so?" Bailey Yun's expression was indifferent as he replied casually. "Do you want to try my type?" Her fingernails were dyed scarlet. She stretched her slender fingers in front of him and her sexy red lips curled up. "My English name is Sophia. How should I address you?" "Bailey Yun." He politely shook her fingers and wasn't very friendly. She smiled. "I just arrived in China today. However, it seems like I didn't come at the right time. Everyone is busy with the holidays." He said indifferently, "The Spring Festival is a day for the whole family to reunite. It's very important to Chinese people." She glanced at the bar and nodded. No wonder there are so few people in the bar. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on him with complex emotions surging in them. "What about you? Why don't you reunite with your wife and child?" Bailey Yun's lips curled up mockingly. "The woman I love is already married. I'm still single." "What a pity." Sophia shrugged. She supported her exquisite face with one hand and smiled coquettishly. "I'm single too. Why don't I accompany you for the holidays?" Bailey Yun turned to look at her and his lips curled up in a strange smile. "How do you plan to accompany me?" "I'll accompany you however you want me to." Her slender fingers slowly landed on his sharp chin and gently stroked it, sliding down to his Adam's apple. "It's a pity that I'm not in the mood." He held her fingers and slowly moved them away. "If you want to have fun, find someone else." Sophia was startled and seemed a little surprised. She suddenly smiled and said, "I came here specifically to look for you." Bailey Yun frowned and looked at her seriously for a while. His brows relaxed and he said lazily, "I don't know you." Why should we know each other when we meet? She moved closer to him and leaned against his chest. Her arms wrapped around his muscular waist and her mouth was close to his ear. She blew hot air into his earlobe and whispered seductively, "Tonight I'm your—" What a persistent woman. Bailey Yun let her hug him and then leaned close to her ear and bit her earlobe. Her body trembled sensitively, and her arms tightened even more. He chuckled. "Not only are you persistent, but you're also a sensitive woman." She stuck out her tongue and licked his ear. "Do you like it then? What do you want?" There was a hint of coldness in his laughter. "A one-night stand or money?" "Your body?" She was like a seductive snake as she wrapped around him tightly. Her hands caressed his back and chest unscrupulously. She looked up at him with her charming eyes that could melt him. She licked her sexy red lips with her pink tongue. "And your love?" Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows. "You're too greedy." She smiled strangely. "I'll get it." He laughed and shook his head. He couldn't be bothered to argue with her. She didn't explain and kissed his thin lips. The tip of her tongue traced the shape of his lips and tried to invade his territory. However, he was indifferent and kept his lips shut. However, to outsiders they looked like a pair of lovers who were kissing passionately. Even the waiter at the bar couldn't stand it and lowered his head to focus on the beer bottle. Sophia stubbornly kissed him. One of her hands quietly slid to his abdomen, and then slowly moved downwards. Bai Liyun's eyes were clear and cold, without the slightest hint of lust. He suddenly tightened his grip on her hand and abruptly pushed her away. He coldly said, "The game is over. You can be eliminated." He was already tired of the boring game of hunting for women. In the past half a year in America, he had put all his energy into his work and rarely went to places of pleasure. He suddenly got up and took out a few notes from his wallet and placed them on the bar counter. "That glass of beer is on me," he said plainly. He didn't look at her anymore and turned to leave. Sophia ran her fingers through her hair and looked at his back as he walked away. Her eyes were deep and serene, and there was a strange smile on her lips. She muttered a few words in Japanese, and it just so happened that the waiter at the bar understood Japanese. He clearly heard her say, "I didn't expect you to actually change." Bailey Yun came out of the bar and leaned against the car with his eyes closed. After he was drunk, he started the car and strolled aimlessly in the city. Suddenly there were a few loud sounds and bright fireworks bloomed in the sky. He saw a magnificent scene through the glass and stopped the car slowly on an unknown street. He lowered the window and watched carefully. "Ah, what are you doing? Let me go. Hand over all your valuables. Hurry up." The woman's scream and the man's threatening voice broke the beautiful picture. Bai Liyun didn't want to meddle in other people's business, but he heard another conversation. "I've handed over all my things to you. Let me go. This little girl is not bad looking. Let us brothers have a good time." "No, get out of my way." Bailey Yun opened the car door and walked towards the alley where the voice came from. He could tolerate robbery, but he couldn't tolerate men raping women. He quickly walked into the dark alley. There was only a dim street lamp here. He saw a thin woman fighting with two tall and powerful men. Their strength was completely unequal, but she didn't give up. She bit with her teeth and kicked with her feet. Her fierce look was like a little white rabbit that had been forced into a corner. A man raised his arm high and was about to land on the woman's face. Bailey Yun quickly stepped forward and grabbed the man's wrist. He dragged the man to the side and kicked him hard in the stomach. The man groaned in pain and hugged his stomach. He didn't raise his head for a long time. The other man said angrily, "Don't King meddle in other people's business. Get out of my way. You're the one who should get out of my way." Bailey Yun coldly said. He pulled the woman behind him and punched the man's face. "I'll King kill you." The man flew into a rage out of humiliation and rushed forward with a dagger. "Be careful," the woman cried out worriedly. Bailey Yun kicked the man's knee. The man was caught off guard and almost fell. He took the opportunity to snatch the dagger in his hand and threw it far away. Then he flew up and kicked the man's crotch. Ouch! The man howled in pain. He was even louder than his companions. He hugged his lower body and rolled on the ground. "Pick up your things and go," Bailey Yun said coldly. "Oh, okay." The woman carefully picked up her handbag from the ground and followed behind Bailey Yun. They left this troublesome place. When they reached the brightly lit avenue, Bailey Yun turned around and looked at the woman behind him. He said indifferently, "Where do you live? I'll send you back." It was the middle of the night and it was New Year's Eve. It was definitely not easy to get a taxi. The woman was stunned. She pointed at him and shouted, "Bailey Yun, it's you." Bailey Yun looked at her seriously and frowned. "Li Duobao?" Yes, it's me. I didn't expect you to remember me. Li Duobao tucked her messy hair behind her ear and laughed. I thought your voice was familiar. I didn't expect to meet an old acquaintance. Bailey Yun frowned even more. Why are you here? Li Duobao's round face revealed an uncomfortable expression. I'm here to see my mother. She lives behind that alley. She pointed at the place where he had taught the robber a lesson. Let's talk in the car. Bailey Yun noticed that her cheeks were red from the cold. Come and see. Hongcha 866.